Chapter 4307. Elsewhere in the Thousand Beasts Sacred Realm, there was a crimson lake of lava. The moment the power of the moon and stars descended, the entire lake began to boil violently. Soon after, a vermilion bird that was over 50 kilometers long flew out of the lake. Scorching lava slowly dripped down the vermilion bird's feathers, and crimson flames that were several kilometers tall appeared around the vermilion bird. As soon as the vermilion bird soared into the sky, it spread its wings wide, covering an area of nearly 1,000 miles. At the same time, half a star mark appeared under each wing, shining brightly with the crimson flames. The vermilion bird's crimson flames filled up the starlight, making it look like a star again. Who is it? As the vermilion bird flapped its wings, its crimson flames devoured the power of the moon and stars for thousands of miles. At the same time, it let out a shrill cry. Who dares to become a great saint before Zhu Mei? Damn it! This saint will definitely not forgive him. However, the vermilion bird was the same as the profound armored dragon. Just as it began to fly, it stopped in midair and tilted its head to look at the Big Dipper in the sky. That's not right. In the entire Thousand Demons Sacred Realm, aside from Zhu Mei, who could possibly become a great saint within 100,000 years, who else could possibly enter the Great Saint Palace? This is too strange. That's not right. This doesn't seem to be a simple great saint. The vermilion bird suddenly seemed to realize something. Looking at the sky again, it cried out in shock. Why did the Big Dipper appear all of a sudden? Who has the guts to imprint all 7 stars into a demon body? Damn it, this saint had split one star into 2 and imprinted it into 2 wings. Does he not want to live anymore? While the vermilion bird was still in shock, the already bright Big Dipper lit up again, twice as bright as before. As expected, the vermilion bird's mouth fell open in shock. Looking at the Big Dipper again, it lit up continuously, each time brighter than the last. In the end, the Big Dipper was completely lit up, shining 7 times brighter than before. How is this possible? The crimson flame vermilion bird was completely dumbstruck. It didn't even care about the crimson flames in the surrounding space, as it stared blankly at the Big Dipper. Beneath the South Sea, in the Dragon Palace that was completely covered by the boundless sea, the 7 Stars Palace had completely restored the void. After the demonic phoenix's phoenix body was on par with the many great sages of the demon clan, her phoenix body rose again. 1,000 feet, 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet. Finally, she rose to a height of more than 6,000 feet. Although it was only 6,000 feet tall, the phoenix body star gave off a feeling of tilting the heavens. Wan Sheng of the demon clan, who had tried to stop Feng Wu from becoming a great saint, opened his eyes again. There was only shock, fear and submission in his eyes. All of this was clearly seen by Xiaohua's consciousness. Only now did Xiaohua realize that the stars formed by the great sages of the demon clan were not completely on the same plane. Some were slightly higher, some were slightly lower, and there were also some that were more than 100 feet tall. However, an existence like him, who was 6,000 feet tall, hadn't noticed it yet. Ka the demonic phoenix let out another long cry. Its powerful consciousness rushed into the nearby starry sky, as if it was demonstrating its might. Wherever this consciousness swept past, the stars that had transformed into great sages of the demon race all closed their eyes. Their starlight slowly weakened, and they turned into ordinary stars. The void around these stars also began to blur. Boom! At the same time as the void blurred, another arch bridge of starlight broke through the void and landed right below the demonic phoenix. On the other side of the starlight, a huge, magnificent palace appeared in the void. Great Sage Palace? Xiaohua was overjoyed when he saw it. He originally wanted to go to the Thousand Demons Sacred Realm. With the Great Sage Palace's star bridge, wouldn't it save him a lot of trouble? Unfortunately, just as Xiaohua's joy was born, the demonic phoenix spread its wings and struck the star bridge with a bang, instantly turning it into dust. At the same time, the phantom of the Great Sacred Hall also disappeared in the blink of an eye. Jie the demonic phoenix let out a long cry of disdain, and then its powerful consciousness retreated like the tide. The demonic phoenix left. Xiaohua of the heavenly Tao did not wait for Xiaohua's consciousness to return. He also turned into nothingness and hid in space. Before Xiaohua could say anything, a starry sky comprehension was transmitted into his mind. Xiaohua did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly ordered Feng Wu's consciousness to take over, while he concentrated on finishing up. The demonic phoenix's consciousness disappeared, and Feng Wu comprehended its own star imprints. Only Xiaohua's consciousness returned. Just as Xiaohua's mind returned to its original position, a kind of exhaustion after extreme excitement attacked him at the same time. Xiaohua urged his monster body to flap his wings, and the power of the stars and moon slowly entered his body. The small dot engraved with the pattern of the Big Dipper also entered his body. 7 star patterns that were not much bigger than sesame seeds appeared on his back. If one did not look carefully, perhaps no one would be able to discover them, right? When Xiaohua retracted his wings, the starlight in the void had already disappeared. Xiaohua did not move at all, but his figure had already retreated from the void. The void was like a curtain, slowly closing behind him. Xiaohua's body returned to its original state, still remaining in the Dragon Palace's dragon array. However, at this time, the 7 brilliant stars that formed Great God Shibai had completely dimmed. The white and blue magnetic force that had previously filled the 7 stars palace's space had also disappeared, leaving only 7 empty star shells floating powerlessly in the air. Fellow Taoist, at this time, Feng Wu's voice appeared in Xiaohua's mind again. Has the star worship ended? It ended, Xiaohua replied as if relieved of a heavy burden. After I took over the phoenix body, it ended. So fast? Feng Wu's voice was a little surprised, but it did not reveal any special shock. Xiaohua stared blankly, then immediately understood, and said with a smile, Fellow Taoist seems to have comprehended in the void for another 1,000 years, right? It's more than 1,000 years. Feng Wu smiled bitterly and sighed. Others have obtained the recognition of 1 star, but I got 7 at once. With so many star imprints, I don't know how many years of vicissitudes were recorded. Of course, fellow Taoist Tian Dao resisted in front of me, but if I became a true great saint, I would have to spend tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years to comprehend. How could I comprehend it? What? Hearing this, Xiaohua was shocked. Just now it was only a moment, but fellow Taoist actually comprehended hundreds of thousands of years. Feng Wu. Xiaohua nodded and said, I don't know exactly how much, but it's more than hundreds of thousands of years, definitely not less. To a great saint of the demon race, time can only be a kind of flowing water. Then, fellow Taoist strength? Xiaohua said in shock. Isn't it more powerful than us? I'm still at the 9th level of origin energy. Feng Wu said with a smile. Fellow Taoist, are you disappointed? Nonsense. Xiaohua spat and said. We've narrowly escaped death, so how can we still be at the 9th level of origin energy? Actually, fellow Taoist already knows, so why are you joking with I? Feng Wu. Xiaohua smiled strangely and did not answer. Xiaohua sighed and said, I don't know, I just hope that there's a kind of luck. Unfortunately, I was still disappointed. Within the 3 continents, only 1 great saint is allowed to exist. Fellow Taoist may be much stronger than a great saint, but you're definitely not 7 times stronger than a great saint. Moreover, I also know that the title of great saint is actually the same as the Buddhist sect's Buddha fruit. It's just that you have more chances to shatter the void compared to other demons. In terms of strength, even if fellow Taoist is now a great saint and has comprehended for hundreds of thousands of years, or even longer, you still have a long way to go to surpass the 9th level of origin energy. At this time, I miss the ruins and the primitive continent. If it were there would definitely not be such restrictions. But fellow Taoist's roots are here, in the mortal realm and not in the upper realm. Feng Wu said with a smile. Xiaohua rolled his eyes, curled his lips and said, This poor Taoist's roots are not here, forget it. There's no need to say any more. Let's hurry and find the metal and wood elemental magnetism. Feng Wu knew what Xiaohua wanted to say and urged. We've already delayed for long enough, and now we've even taken advantage of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. If that old Dragon King returns and goes back on his word, it'll be too late for regrets. Hee indeed. With such a huge commotion in the 7 Stars Palace, I'm sure the outside world must be in a mess. Let's hurry up and take action. Xiaohua chuckled and rushed into the bottom of the nearly bottomless space. Xiaohua flew to the bottom of the Seven Stars Palace, and the starry sky in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm gradually disappeared. The clear sky appeared again, and the blazing sun also recovered its usual arrogance. However, after a short while, the scattered dark clouds filled the sky again. Lightning flashed and thunder roared, and a violent storm was about to arrive. A heavenly phenomenon flashed across the scarlet flame vermilion bird's eyes as it slowly regained its senses. It spread its wings and disappeared into the void. A shrill cry pierced through the sky, shattering the dark clouds hundreds of kilometers in size. There was clearly a meaningful smile in that cry, and a faint demonic language was left behind in that cry. Since a new great sage has appeared, the Great Sage Hall will have to rearrange the rankings again. This unknown great sage is so powerful. This great sage does not dare to think about teaching him a lesson. However, this great sage may be fine, but how can that golden rock be willing to settle for second place? The mystic armored Pentaceratops must be thinking about something again, right? Forget it, forget it. Let's go to the Great Sage Hall and see who this new great sage is first. The Thousand Demons' sacred realm originally had 6 great sages. The mystic armored Pentaceratops and the scarlet flame vermilion bird were attracted by the phenomenon of Feng Wu becoming a great sage, and flew to the Great Sage Hall of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm. How could the other 4 great sages sit still? Naturally, they also went to the Great Sage Hall from various places. Unfortunately, the heavenly phoenix did not care about the star bridge of the Great Sage Hall, nor did it care about the Great Sage Halls of the 3 continents. They would definitely miss it. P.S. Sorry, I was busy yesterday and made a mistake, and I missed chapter 3034. Now I've adjusted the content from chapter 3034 to chapter 3036. Chapter 4308. Putting aside the fact that the distant Thousand Demons' sacred realm was in a mess due to Feng Wu becoming a great saint, it was another situation outside the Seven Stars Palace. This was because the demon clan's Stars Surround Saint needed to draw upon the power of the stars. Xiaohua happened to be in the South Sea Dragon Palace at this time. Not to mention how strong the dragon formation of the South Sea Dragon Palace was, just the depth of the South Sea alone blocked the power of the stars outside the Dragon Palace. Feng Wu could only rely on the void to draw upon the power of the stars. Therefore, although the Stars Surround Saint caused a great commotion in the Thousand Demons' sacred realm and the void, it did not attract the attention of the Dragon Clan, or the Sea Clan outside the Seven Stars Palace. No one knew that the most powerful great saint of the Demon Clan had been born in front of them. Even if they were ignorant, Ao Qian and the South Sea Great General's hearts clenched when they saw that the 7 tower-shaped palaces in the Seven Stars Palace had lost their brilliance, and that endless rumbling sounds were suddenly heard from the Seven Stars Palace. When the entire bottom of the sea returned to normal, the brilliance of the Seven Stars Palace did not return to normal. The faces of the 2 Dragon Clan members were deathly pale. They looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. This was the most powerful matrix that the Southern Sea General could activate. Even this matrix could not kill Xiaohua. The 2 of them were really helpless. Ao Qian, Ao Xine. What the hell is going on? Just as the 2 Dragon Clan members were at a loss, an old voice came from afar. Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, Ao Wu. Why did you follow that bullshit Dragon Master into the Seven Stars Palace? Before this voice fell, another different voice sounded. Ao Xine, you actually mobilized an army to surround the Seven Stars Palace? Are you out of your mind? If the Sea Clan takes the opportunity to attack the South Sea Dragon Palace, won't the defense of the South Sea Dragon Palace become a decoration? 4 great-grandfathers at this point, Ao Qian no longer cared whether the 4 consecrators were his great-grandfathers or not. He seemed to have seen his last life-saving straw, and urged his dragon body to pounce over. When he saw an old dragon emitting silver light, he immediately cried, "You're finally here. You must avenge my 3 poor brothers." What? Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, and Ao Wu are dead? How is that possible? An old dragon clad in copper armor flew behind the 2 old dragons. He cried out in disbelief. Didn't I hear that Dragon Master was only at the 6th level of elemental energy? Tell me quickly. What's going on? Before Ao Qian could say anything, a thunderous voice rang out, and several bolts of lightning appeared above the Seven Stars Palace. Although an old dragon with a purple body was flying at the back, it had already surpassed the other 3 dragons and appeared in the seawater above the Seven Stars Palace. Ao Qian didn't dare to be negligent and hurriedly explained the cause of the matter in full detail. Then he gave the Southern Sea Great General Ao Xian a look. Ao Xian also agreed, and explained the situation of the Seven Stars Palace. Finally he smiled bitterly and said, "For old consecrators, if this junior's guess is correct, that Dragon Master Xiaohua has ulterior motives. His target is the metal, wood and magnetism below the Seven Stars Palace. This item is the core of the Seven Stars Palace's trial. Without this item, the Seven Stars Palace wouldn't exist." Presumably, the 3 crown princes saw through Xiaohua's sinister intentions and worked together to stop him. However, Xiaohua concealed his strength and killed the 3 crown princes. He also took the opportunity to charge through the trial's great array and attempted to approach the metal, wood and magnetism. Although this junior activated the final killing array, I still couldn't kill him. I wonder if the 4 consecrators have any ideas? Hearing that Ao Xian had already activated the killing array, the 4 old consecrators' expressions changed greatly. Finally, the purple old dragon shouted with a stern voice, "Are you sure that Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, and Ao Wu have already died in Xiaohua's hands? Otherwise, this killing array would have killed the 3 of them." "Boy can confirm." Ao Qian raised his dragon claw and the wound on his abdomen and said, "Before Xiaohua entered the Seven Stars Palace, he casually injured Boy. Although the 3 elder brothers are stronger than Boy, they aren't that much stronger. Moreover, the Grade 8 Trial's Great Array was activated by Xiaohua. His strength should be around the middle of the 8th grade of Essence Energy. Even Big Brother isn't his match. Moreover, under the Trial's Great Array, I'm afraid Big Brother will also fall. Damn it, damn it, damn it." The purple old dragon's temper was more violent. After cursing 3 times, 3 lightning bolts appeared. Then, the dragon's body was about to pounce towards the Seven Stars Palace. "Ao Liang." The silver old dragon hurriedly shouted, "Don't be impatient. If we forcefully enter the Seven Stars Palace, not only will we be trapped by the trial's great array, we might even let the thief escape from the Seven Stars Palace. Then what do we do? Are we just going to watch?" The purple old dragon Ao Liang was clearly the impulsive type of dragon. As he shouted loudly, his dragon body flashed with lightning bolts that wreaked havoc in the sea. The surrounding Seven Stars Palace was so frightened that they all retreated more than 1,000 zhang. The silver old dragon turned his head to look at the red old dragon and transmitted a message in a low voice. "Ao Xiao, currently in the Seven Stars Palace, the brilliance of the trial's great array has disappeared. The dragon's might and magnetic force produced when the great array was activated also didn't leak out. If I'm not wrong, that thief called Xiaohua should have already passed through the trial's great array. Impossible." The red old dragon Ao Xiao shook his head with certainty. If the brilliance of the Seven Stars Palace had already disappeared before Ao Xian activated the killing array, then Xiaohua could indeed have passed through the trial's great array. However, since he passed through the trial's great array, the Seven Stars Palace should have opened. The current situation is that the Seven Stars Palace hasn't opened yet. Ao Xian has already activated the killing array. After the killing array, there's no movement in the Seven Stars Palace. The only possibility is, Xiaohua has already used a Daoist spell to break the great array, and is now directly entering the core of the Seven Stars Palace. That's what Aoshi said. He wants to snatch the metal and wood magnetic force. But there's something fishy about this. The silver old dragon smiled bitterly. If Xiaohua wants to snatch the metal and wood magnetic force, then so be it. But why did Ao Huan and the others also go in? This really makes us hesitate to attack the rat for fear of breaking the vases. Big Brother the red old dragon Ao Xiao sneered. "We don't know how Ao Huan, Ao Zhen, and Ao Wu went in, but they must have already died. As for the truth behind his death, it's not something we can guess. Moreover, AOG must have understood something. That's why he's standing there without saying a word." While speaking, Ao Xiao looked at the yellow old dragon opposite the Seven Stars Palace. That old dragon felt his gaze and looked over as well. He nodded slightly at Ao Xiao. AOG the silver old dragon transmitted his voice. What should we do now? There's no need to know the details. That's the Dragon King's business. We just need to know the outcome. The yellow old dragon AOG answered without hesitation. Activate the dragon form array of the Seven Stars Palace and suppress everything inside. We'll wait for the Dragon King to return. Okay, this old man has the same plan. The silver old dragon nodded. Then he raised his head and roared. The seawater within 100 miles shook as if it was boiling. Then the silver old dragon shouted, "General of the Southern Sea, listen to my order. Set up the Overturn Oceans Array and surround the Seven Stars Palace." Yes, when the Southern Sea Great General heard the order, he raised his hand and took out a khaki-colored sea flag from the long bay. He unfurled it in the sea, and tens of thousands of waves rippled out from the sea flag, covering an area of several thousand miles around the Seven Stars Palace. Then the Southern Sea Great General Ao Xian said in a dignified voice, "Sea Clan Dragon Generals, set up the Overturn Oceans formation." Wu the peaceful South Sea Dragon Palace was in an uproar again. All kinds of sea clans and dragon generals followed the wave of the sea flags and moved towards their respective positions in a well-trained manner. In less than 5 minutes, a solemn and powerful Overturn Oceans formation had been set up. The formation was like a huge wave that converged from the outside to the inside, surrounding the Seven Stars Palace so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Let's activate the Dragon Form Array. Seeing that the Southern Sea General had finished setting up the Overturn Oceans Array, the silver old dragon roared again and ordered. Great-grandfather AOG was stunned when he heard that. He said in shock, "Aren't you going to enter the Seven Stars Palace and kill that damn Xiao Hua? Perhaps my 3 elder brothers still have a chance to survive." That's right. The purple old dragon Ao Liang was also puzzled. "AOU, us 4 dragons entering the Seven Stars Palace is still not enough to capture that Xiao Hua? He's just a human with an 8th level essence power. I'd like to see how this bullshit human dares to call himself a dragon master." Ao Liang. The silver old dragon AOU replied indifferently. "We've already passed the age of fighting and killing. Why are you still as impulsive as Ao Qian? Don't you know what we're going to do now?" Hearing the silver old dragon say that he was impulsive, Ao Liang couldn't help but want to jump up and refute. However, the yellow old dragon AOG said indifferently, "Ao Liang, if you want to enter the Seven Stars Palace, then go ahead. We're about to activate the Dragon Form Array. We don't care about the lives of the Dragon Clan." Inside, Ao Liang roared, and created a few more thunderbolts in the seawater. Then he waved his claw and took out an ancient crystal plate from the long bay. As he breathed out his dragon breath, the crystal plate turned into a dragon and pounced on the Seven Stars Palace. Seeing that Ao Liang moved, AOG and the other 2 dragons also took out their crystal tokens and threw them into the Seven Stars Palace. Ao Qian's face was a little pale. He knew better than Ao Liang that whether it was the silver old dragon AOU or the yellow old dragon AOG, their words had a double meaning. They clearly expressed their attitude. They didn't care about the truth of the matter. They only wanted to protect the stability of the Dragon Palace. All the details and decisions would be left to the Dragon King of the South Sea, who hadn't appeared yet. Therefore, Ao Qian's wishful thinking of using the 4 consecrators to kill Xiao Hua was not going to work. However, at this point, Ao Qian could no longer turn back. He could only clench his teeth and watch the crystal tokens fall on the 4 corridors of the Seven Stars Palace. Chapter 4309. The Seven Stars Palace originally had 7 pagoda-shaped halls as its core. However, at the place where the 4 crystal tablets landed, dragon scales suddenly appeared on the 4 long corridors. After the crystal tablets fused with the dragon scales, the 4 long corridors actually separated from the pagoda-shaped halls and formed 4 independent dragon shapes. However, these 4 dragon shapes slowly rotated in the center of the Seven Stars Palace. Roar Ao Liang's figure was the fastest. As soon as the 4 dragon figures came out of the palace, he immediately shrunk his dragon body and entered it. Just as Ao Liang's dragon body entered the palace, the entire Seven Stars Palace shook once again. Of course, the shaking this time was not as intense as the previous Seven Stars Grand Formation. However, after this shaking, a powerful dragon aura rushed out of the Seven Stars Palace and directly entered the sea above the palace. A huge whirlpool gradually formed. This whirlpool was rather strange. It was huge just a moment ago, but after it formed, it shrunk again. In the end, it actually became like an ordinary python that stood upright above the Seven Stars Palace. Roar, roar, roar! Aou, Ao Xiao, and Aog, the three old dragons, also rushed into the dragon shapes. In just a short moment, 4 whirlpools appeared above the Seven Stars Palace. When the 4 whirlpools were formed, the 4 old dragons actually spun faster. The 4 whirlpools quickly mixed together and formed 4 overlapping layers. Half of the whirlpool was hidden in the void, and the other half was hidden in the sea. It was like a hole that stood upright above the Seven Stars Palace. And at this time, all of the water element origin energy within 10,000 miles of the Seven Stars Palace condensed into thumb-sized crystal lights. Like fish swimming in water, they dove into the whirlpool. A power even greater than an ordinary tsunami was born within the whirlpool. When Ao Qian saw this terrifying power, his heart felt like it was dripping blood. Damn it, these 4 old dragons actually want to suppress Xiao Hua. If this array directly kills him, then even if Xiao Hua is a 9th grade essence force, he probably won't be able to survive. Sigh, this king still needs to think carefully about how to deal with father when he returns. If even these 4 old farts are suspicious, then it seems that royal father will be suspicious as well. There was a common saying, if you want to kill someone, you must first make them crazy. Although Ao Qian was from the dragon race, he really fell into this common saying of the human race. If one were to carefully ponder over the details of how he framed Xiao Hua, there was no lack of flaws in it. In fact, there were many places that were not even worth considering. Especially the matter of the 3 princes of the South Sea Dragon Palace chasing Xiao Hua into the Seven Stars Palace. However, Ao Qian had already been forced to this point. He no longer felt that there was anything wrong. He only wanted to make this lie as seamless as possible. However, he did not know that the outcome had already been decided the moment he wanted to kill the 3 crown princes. Just as Ao Shi was pondering over the flaws, a huge roar woke him up from his contemplation. Boom, boom, boom! The sea area within thousands of miles around the Seven Stars Palace trembled, as if the entire South Sea was sinking. The 4 vortexes fell one after another, and finally merged into one, which fell into the void of the Seven Stars Palace and disappeared. Along with the vortexes, the 4 old dragons disappeared. It was unknown whether they fell into the palace or the formation of the Seven Stars Palace. The rumbling sound grew deeper and deeper until it finally disappeared. The entire Seven Stars Palace gradually returned to normal. Following that, the 100,000 members of the Sea Tribe who had besieged the Seven Stars Palace also returned to normal. Although the members of the Sea Tribe had already set up the Overturn Oceans formation, the moment the 4 vortexes rushed into the Seven Stars Palace, a vast force emerged from the palace and rushed into the Overturn Oceans formation. The formation formed by the 100,000 members of the Sea Tribe was directly flattened by the overflowing force. The members of the Sea Tribe understood the power of the dragon image formation that had completely rushed into the bottom of the sea. Is it over? Ao Xian, the great general of the South Sea, looked at the Seven Stars Palace worriedly, and then looked in the direction of the Dragon Palace. He knew that even if the 4 old consecrators appeared, he would not dare to believe it. Only when the master of the South Sea Dragon Palace appeared would he be completely at ease. Sure enough, the silence only lasted for the time it took to eat a meal. Boom, boom, boom! Violent tremors came from the bottom of the sea. The Seven Stars Palace shook violently, and the tremors rushed out from the ground, causing the seawater to surge violently. As a member of the Sea Tribe, Ao Xian could not stand in the seawater. Ao Xian's face was ashen, and he could not help but look at Ao Qian. At this time, although Ao Qian's face was deathly pale, there was an indescribable expression in his eyes. This expression seemed to be understanding, ecstasy, and also helplessness. As for Xiao Hua, he had not yet seen the metal, wood, and magnetic elements, but he had already profited greatly. He unconsciously flew down into the space in high spirits. The space was different from before. The originally crystal-like seawater had disappeared, and there was not a single drop of water in the entire space. Moreover, the lower Xiaohua flew, the more obvious the faint magnetic force became. Sensing the magnetic force that could kill people at will, Xiaohua's heart was bursting with joy. Because he was afraid that there would be other dangers in the space, Xiaohua did not dare to teleport, but his speed was still very fast. In just half the time it took to eat a meal, his divine sense had already sensed a layer of restriction that was as thick as the earth under the space. Moreover, this restriction did not prevent the metal and wood magnetic forces from passing through. Quite a bit of magnetic force entered the space in the darkness, flickering with silver-white and green-green colors. It seems that little bastard Ao Qian has some plans. Xiaohua was a great formation master. Although his divine sense was confined in this great formation, when he scanned this great formation, he saw that the magnetic force and the restriction had very tacitly merged together. He did not need to see the metal and wood magnetic forces in the light projection of the great god Shibai to immediately understand that the great formation he was in was definitely not a great formation that suppressed the metal and wood magnetic forces, but a great formation with the metal and wood magnetic forces as the core. If he thought of the great formation's might and the benefits that Fengwu obtained, Xiaohua knew that this great formation should be the location of the Dragon Clan's trial in the Southern Sea Dragon Palace. It might even be a sacred place to awaken the Dragon Clan's bloodline. Ao Qian deceived him to come here, so he must have some ulterior motives. However, as to what his ulterior motives were, Xiaohua already disdained to guess. All of his schemes and plots were like floating clouds in front of a money grubber, who was already at the 9th level of origin energy. What is this? Right when Xiaohua's figure descended and his divine sense swept through the grand formation in preparation to look for a flaw, he was suddenly stunned. Because right at the grand formation, the corpses of over 10 dragons were scattered on the metal and wood magnetic field. Dragon corpses were naturally treasures to the human race. Xiaohua did not hesitate at all. With a sweep of his divine sense, he was about to store these dragon corpses into the space. However, his divine sense merely swept past these corpses. When he saw that a few of the dragon corpses were still wearing crowns, Xiaohua smiled again. However, this smile was so cold. Xiaohua casually waved his hand, and took one of the dragon heads with a purple gold crown in his hand. Looking at the eyes of the dragon head that died with remaining grievances, and then looking at the purple gold crown, he sneered and said, "Damn it, so that's how it is. Ao Qian, this little bastard, had such an idea. He wants to make this Xiao a scapegoat? This dragon head is probably the head of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace's crown prince." As the Southern Sea Dragon Palace's 4th crown prince, if Ao Qian wants to obtain the position of Dragon King, he must kill the crown prince, the 2nd crown prince, and the 3rd crown prince. The other 2 crown dragon heads should be the 2nd and 3rd crown princes. As for the other corpses, they should be the subordinates of the 3 crown princes. Like I said, how could there be dragon corpses in the trial array? The Southern Sea Dragon Palace would not let these dragon corpses explode like this. However, how could Ao Qian predict that this Xiao would come to the Southern Sea Dragon Palace today? Why would he need to predict? He probably already had this idea long ago. This Xiao just happened to be here at the right time. However, since you dare to have ideas about this Xiao, then don't blame this Xiao for being ruthless. I'll let you go for wool and come home shorn. Thinking of this, Xiaohua's mind swept. He did not have the kind of scruples that Ao Qian thought he would have. He put all the dragon corpses into his space. Then his figure flew and looked at the great array. At this time, above Xiaohua's head, outside the 7 Stars Palace, the 4 old dragons of the Southern Sea fell into the dragon form great array. They used their own dragon might to stimulate the great array. The countless origin energy crystals turned into a vortex and fell into the void of the 7 Stars Palace. However, this vortex did not directly suppress Xiaohua like the 100,000 Sea clan members thought. Instead, it first fell into the 3 dragon-shaped words inside the 7 Stars Palace. The 3 dragon shapes turned into dragons at this time. Carrying the might of the 4 vortexes and the power of the 4 old dragons, They rushed towards the bottom of the great array. Xiaohua had just looked at the bottom of the great array. Facing the great array that the Southern Sea Dragon Palace had set up for who knows how many years and how many times they had set it up, Xiaohua felt that it was a bit tricky. This restriction was like a hole, and was as heavy as a mountain. Where did it come from? Moreover, the restriction was mixed with metal and wood magnetic forces. Any restriction-breaking magic tool would be affected by this magnetic force. Ordinary restriction-breaking methods would not be effective. Just as Xiaohua was pondering about how to break the array, a ray of light suddenly appeared in the entire space. Along with this light, the 3 dragon-shaped characters that Xiaohua had seen when he entered the Seven Stars Palace seemed to have come to life. Roar! 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 3 dragon roars tore through the space. Every stroke that formed the 3 characters were entwined with dragon might and crystal light. These strokes stretched out like sleeping dragons, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced towards Xiaohua. As the 3 dragons swooped down, there was naturally a heaven-shattering, earth-shattering pressure. Oh! Xiaohua raised his head in surprise and looked at the 3 dragon forms pouncing towards him. Xiaohua had previously seen the power of the Great Array destroying heaven and earth exterminating earth in the primitive continent. The power of these dragon forms was naturally far inferior to the Great Array set up by the happiness-absorbing heavenly devil. However, this kind of pressure was absolutely unstoppable in the space of the Seven Stars Palace's Great Array. This caused Xiaohua to be a bit startled after being surprised. He hurriedly raised his hand and wanted to take out a magic treasure to resist. Chapter 43:10. At this moment, the 3 dragon forms underwent another change. After the first dragon form descended 1,000 feet, its entire body rapidly expanded. Streams of dragon breath mixed with multicolored light gushed out from the dragon patterns on its body. Within this multicolored light, the scenes of the Desolation Catalog that Xiaohua had seen before flashed. The dragon's body instantly covered the entire space. A boundless aura was emitted from the dragon's body. That seemingly incomparably heavy pressure once again rushed out from this aura, and it was several times stronger than before. Looking at the second dragon form, at the same time as the first dragon form covered the entire space, it also gradually expanded. However, this dragon form did not emit multicolored light, nor did it emit any Desolation Catalog. Instead, it transformed into layers of turbid gas. This turbid gas fell into the void and quickly disappeared. Xiaohua was naturally shocked. He quickly scanned with his divine sense, but he did not find any trace of the turbid gas. Just as Xiaohua frowned, the turbid gas strangely appeared under his feet again. Like a thick layer of dust, it sprinkled onto the restriction that was previously as heavy as the earth. Not good. Xiaohua seemed to have understood something, and he secretly cursed in his heart. Sure enough, as soon as the turbid energy descended onto the restriction actually started to condense into pieces, and then numerous enormous dragon scales appeared on it. In just a short moment, the entire restriction was like the body of an enormous dragon, and it even seemed like a thick and heavy piece of land. What shocked Xiaohua the most was that this earth began to move towards the sky. A wave of pressure that was exactly the same as before was born at the same time. However, this time, the direction was completely different from before. Roar! The last dragon form's dragon roar was much louder than before. Moreover, as the dragon form pounced forward, the different dragon forms on the surface of the dragon form's body constantly changed. Every time they changed, the pressure and restrictive power would increase by a bit. When the dragon forms were clearly visible, the power of the heaven, earth and dragon forms formation that the old silver dragon Aou spoke of was already several times stronger than before. Facing such a powerful formation, even a Dao sect cultivator like Xiaohua, who was a 9th grade essence energy cultivator, had a change in expression. His hand that was about to take out a magic treasure from the space stopped on the spot. Xiaohua understood in his heart that the best choice now was to flee and temporarily avoid the brunt of the attack. When the dragon image that represented the attack missed, he would then calmly deal with it. However, just as his figure was about to move, the entire space was strangely suffused with dragon patterns. These dragon patterns completely blocked the space, and the fluctuations within the dragon patterns even confined the space. Not to mention dodging. Even flying a few feet became difficult for Xiaohua. Damn it! Xiaohua roared angrily. He rubbed his hands together, and thousands of lightning bolts were born from his hands. After destroying the dragon patterns near him, they turned into monstrous lightning and formed layers of lightning mist above his head. This lightning mist roared and attacked the dragon patterns, and even welcomed the descending dragon image. Wu the dragon shook its body slightly, and with a gust of wind, a small whirlpool appeared from the dragon's body. It spiraled toward the overflowing lightning mist. Speaking of which, it was quite strange. When the whirlpool descended, all the lightning mist suddenly stopped wreaking havoc and automatically flew towards the whirlpool. In fact, the small whirlpool even controlled all the lightning mist within the entire space. This dragon image actually has the power of a domain? Xiaohua was truly stunned. At this moment, the dragon image seemed to have absorbed the lightning mist, and its aura increased greatly. Roar! A dragon roar that shook the space rang out again. The entire space was shaking, and Xiaohua felt that his body could not stand stably within the space. Looking at the dragon image again, it suddenly accelerated its speed of descent. The sky formed by the dragon image in the sky and the earth formed by the dragon image under its feet were actually controlled by the dragon image. It pounced toward Xiaohua with unparalleled power. It was as if the entire world was about to close in front of Xiaohua. It was truly terrifying. Sensing that the space was becoming more and more sealed, and that his domain was being destroyed by the dragon image, Xiaohua came to a realization. Damn it, this is trying to suppress this Xiao. It seems like Ao Qian wants to capture both the person and the stolen goods. However, at this point, not to mention the stolen goods, you can forget about even seeing the person. While speaking, Xiaohua's gaze swept across the space. When the dragon image descended, countless dragon scales and dragon patterns had already surrounded the surroundings. In addition to the cage formed by the merging of heaven and earth, he coldly smiled, patted his own head, and said, "Where is the celestial? Evil dragon, don't be so rampant. I am coming." The celestial roared and flew out from Xiaohua's body. Although the entire space was sealed by the dragon image formation, the celestial's body still flashed with a bronze brilliance. His body rapidly expanded, and in a short moment, he turned into a golden body that was thousands of feet tall. He waved his fist and smashed towards the dragon image that was pouncing toward him. The 4 old consecrators of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace activated the Heaven and Earth Dragon Great Array. Although their dragon bodies were guarding the top of the 7 Stars Palace and did not fall down, within the dragon image they formed, there were also their respective avatars. Seeing the celestial suddenly appear, the 4 consecrators within the dragon image were startled. Then, Roar the dragon image let out a provocative roar, waved its dragon claws, swung its dragon tail, and used the power of heaven and earth to fight the celestial. However, although the battle between the dragon image and the celestial tore the space into pieces, and there were continuous rumbles, the sealing of heaven and earth did not stop at all. It slowly pressed down on Xiaohua. Xiaohua coldly snorted again, patted his own head again, and said, "Where is Wen Chu?" Boom! As Xiaohua's voice fell, 5-colored qi rushed out, and Wen Chu's figure appeared from the qi with the 3-foot sword in his hand. As soon as Wen Chu appeared, he immediately perceived everything from Xiaohua's mind. He slightly smiled, opened his mouth, and the Heaven and Earth Pagoda came out from his body. He said, "The Southern Sea Dragon Palace has the Heaven and Earth Dragon Great Array to suppress it, but I also have the Heaven and Earth Pagoda. Let's see if my human race's Heaven and Earth Pagoda can open this Heaven and Earth." The Heaven and Earth Pagoda fell into the sky, and when Chu opened his mouth again, the 5-colored qi turned into 5 clouds and rushed into the Heaven and Earth Pagoda. The Heaven and Earth Pagoda also let out a loud rumbling sound, and in the time it took to drink a cup of tea, it had turned into a giant pagoda. There is no noble qi in this space. How can this Confucian cultivator activate the imperial equipment? Aou's avatars in the dragon image whispered in surprise. The moment he was distracted, boom! The celestial punched the dragon image's abdomen. The dragon image trembled and was almost sent flying. Although the celestial was powerful, he could not resist the power of 4 dragon avatars and the dragon image. This first move gave him a chance to breathe under the suppression of the dragon image. Boom boom, the Heaven and Earth Pagoda and the Heaven and Earth Dragon Great Array finally came into contact, and the entire space let out 2 loud rumbling sounds. The seemingly unstoppable Heaven and Earth were stopped by the Heaven and Earth Pagoda just like that. How is this possible? Aou and the other 4 consecrators did not dare to disturb the avatars any longer. They all cried out in surprise from above the Great Array. Ao Liang's dragon body danced, and he clamored as he prepared to pounce down and kill Wenchu. Damn it! Where did this Confucian cultivator come from? How dare he go against the Southern Sea Dragon Palace? Let's see if I don't kill him. Ao Liang, shut up. Aou hurriedly stopped him. If you go, won't the Great Array collapse? Not to mention killing the Confucian cultivator, even Xiao Hua will escape. Damn it! Although Ao Liang had a bad temper, he knew the severity of the matter. He cursed angrily and then became obedient. Let's activate the Great Array. Aoji sneered. Although the imperial equipment of this Confucian cultivator is powerful, that Confucian cultivator is also alone. We 4 dragons, plus the power of the Great Array, should definitely be able to defeat this imperial equipment. That's right, we only need to suppress it. There's no need to think about killing it. Aou echoed, and the 4 old dragons once again activated their dragon power. Creak creak, although the Heaven and Earth Pagoda was powerful, Wenchu alone was not comparable to 4 old dragons. In just a few breaths, the Heaven and Earth Pagoda emitted an ear-piercing sound and began to shrink slowly. Wenchu frowned and sent a sound transmission to Xiaohua below the Heaven and Earth Pagoda. Fellow immortal, I'm afraid I can't hold on for long. Fellow immortal, I don't think you can hold on for long either. Xiaohua pinched his chin and looked at the ground thoughtfully. Hearing Wenchu's reminder, he nodded and then looked up. Sure enough, the dragon image was abnormally fierce and had already entangled the celestial. Fellow Taoists, hold on for a while longer. Xiaohua seemed to already have a card up his sleeve. He raised his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. Under the urging of his spiritual power, a dazzling beam of light rushed out from the mirror and landed on the ground. Boom, amidst the rumbling sound. The void that came into contact with the ground was forcibly opened by the Kunlun mirror. Roaring dragon patterns in metal, wood and magnetic forces swarmed out from inside. What is Xiaohua doing? Aoji saw the void passage and was a little stunned. Is he trying to escape from the Great Array? But if he wants to escape, he should also go from another place. Oh no, this guy is going to attack the metal and wood magnetic forces. That's impossible. Aou was very puzzled. Xiaohua wants to get the metal and wood magnetic forces. It should be a lie made up by that little bastard Ao Qian. We dragons don't dare to get too close to the metal and wood magnetic forces. How can he, a human, do it? While the 4 old dragons were still in shock, Xiaohua's figure flashed, and he brought the Kunlun mirror with him into the tunnel in the void. Although the tunnel was filled with dragon patterns and metal, and wood elemental magnetism, under Xiaohua's unparalleled lightning, they were all turned into ashes. Sure enough, this guy wants to escape, Ao Liang shouted. Let's do it quickly, he can't escape. Although Aoji was a little puzzled, he still said confidently, the metal and wood magnetic forces space is also a part of the Heaven and Earth Dragon Image Great Array. Although we can't control the space there, if he can escape from the magnetic forces space, we can still suppress him. Besides, this old man doesn't believe he can escape from the metal and wood magnetic forces space. Chapter 43:11. Sure enough, as Aoji said, in less than half a cup of tea's time, another beam of light strangely appeared in the void. Xiaohua's figure once again flew out of the beam of light, but he did not escape from the metal and wood magnetic space. However, looking at the slight smile on Xiaohua's face, Aoji felt that he seemed to have miscalculated something and neglected something. He couldn't help but mutter, could it be, this guy is really thinking about the metal and wood magnetic space? Aoji's guess ended here, because what happened next almost made his dragon jaw drop. How could he have time to think more? Xiaohua had just landed in the air when he raised his hand again. Buzz, a seal flew out from his hand, The seal was completely sealed in the space, but it still emitted a dazzling bronze brilliance. Although there was no Ing Luo, the coiling dragon on the seal, under the urging of the secret technique, rushed to the top of the space with the seal in its mouth. Before the seal got close, the force that wanted to break the dome of heaven had already scattered the dragon image on the other side of the sky. Boom then, Xiaohua threw out the Kunlun mirror again. Several fist-sized crystal lights fell on the mirror, and the whole Kunlun mirror produced a six-colored beam of light. This beam of light corresponded to the seal and rushed out from the other side of the heaven and earth pagoda. When it fell into the sky of the dragon image, it was like a solid pillar supporting the sky, firmly supporting the falling dome of heaven. This guy can actually control two magic treasures? Aog couldn't help but mutter. Xiaohua patted his head again. Boom, the power of the stars and moon gushed out, and Fengwu appeared in the air with a faint smile on her face. Fellow Taoist, Xiaohua bowed and said with a smile, to shoot a man, shoot the horse first. To capture the bandits, capture the leader first. Fellow Taoist, Tian Do's dragon image is the center of the formation. Please kill this dragon image first. Good. Fengwu returned the salute and responded. She spread her wings, and the power of the stars and moon gushed out of her body. Fengwu circled in the air and rushed toward the dragon image. Xiaohua himself, on the other hand, urged his spiritual power, and the heavenly law embodiment technique was displayed again. The whole golden body seemed to be splitting the sky and earth, and rapidly expanded in the space. Seeing Fengwu attack, Aog was dumbfounded and shouted, How is this possible? The whole space has been sealed by the formation. Where did the power of the stars and moon come from? This demon race. Jie Fengwu spread his wings and swung down from the sky. Wherever the phoenix claw landed, the space within a radius of several kilometers was sealed by him. The dragon form sensed the extremely sharp wind, and was unable to struggle free, and it let out a furious roar. The dragon claw rose from the shoulder of the celestial being that had already been torn to shreds, and met Fengwu's phoenix claw head-on. Boom. When the dragon claw and the phoenix claw collided, the space within a radius of several dozen miles shattered. Metal, wood, magnetism, and dragon runes gushed out, producing a loud explosive sound. Fengwu's phoenix body was caught by the dragon claw and lost its balance, tumbling in midair. If Fengwu, who had just become a great saint, was already in such a state, then how much better could Long Xiang be? The dragon form's body was also tumbling in the air, and its huge dragon tail swung in the air, trying to take advantage of the situation to launch a sneak attack on Fengwu. Pung, another loud sound rang out, and the celestial being's fist struck the dragon tail. Jie Fengwu stabilized her body, opened her mouth, and spat out the power of the stars and moon. This power of the stars and moon ignored the distance and confinement of space, and blasted the dragon image's head with lightning speed. This attack was so sudden that the dragon image could not dodge in time, and its whole head was penetrated. The avatars of Aog and the other three old dragons were at the dragon's head. Fengwu's attack defeated the avatars of the four old dragons, and Aog's whole body rolled in the Seven Stars Palace. He shouted in disbelief, How is this possible? Why is the power of the stars and moon of the demon race so powerful? The dragon image formation is in danger. Ao Liang shouted. Let's urge the avatars. Yes, Aog, let's hurry. Aou was also shocked. If we don't urge the avatars and let the dragon image rely on its instinct, I'm afraid it will soon be defeated by this unknown demon race. Aog, of course, did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly cooperated with the other three dragons, and urged the dragon race's secret art to send the avatars into the dragon image again. But at this moment, the real fatal blow appeared. Xiaohua, who was attacking the dragon image with all his strength, turned around very strangely. As he waved his hand, a golden light fell, and the soaring dragon scissors turned into a flood dragon. With a swing of the dragon's tail, the dragon image was neatly cut in half from head to tail. Seeing Xiaohua's calculation, Aog sighed. Alas, it's too late. It's too late, Ao Liang shouted. As long as our avatars descend, the dragon image can be restored in an instant. Aog did not answer Ao Liang's question, and Aou also said dejectedly, How can Xiaohua give our avatars time to descend? Sure enough, before Aou's voice fell, A whirlwind rose in the space. The dragon image that had just been cut in half was swept up by the whirlwind, and half of it fell into Feng Wu's mouth. Seeing the huge dragon image being swallowed by Feng Wu, Aoyu couldn't help but feel an indescribable chill in his heart. He almost screamed in his heart, "Ao Qian, this little bastard. What the hell is wrong with him? He actually dares to provoke a cultivator with such a background like Xiaohua." The dragon image that was half swallowed by Feng Wu was obviously afraid of Feng Wu. It struggled to fly back to the formation, but at this time, how could the Celestials let it go? They blocked its escape with punches and kicks, waiting for Feng Wu to find time to devour the other half of the dragon image. "We will guard the formation and not take the initiative to attack." Aoyu made a prompt decision. "Don't ask for merit, just ask for no mistakes. Xiaohua can't do anything to us." Aoji watched Feng Wu and the Celestials work together to kill the dragon image. Watch Wen Chu activate the Heaven and Earth Pagoda. And then watch Xiaohua put away the soaring dragon shears with a smile. Finally, his gaze fell on the Kunlun mirror and the seal of turning the sea. And in his mind, the slightly panicked expression of Xiaohua when the dragon image formation just appeared. At this time, he completely understood that Xiaohua was not panicking at all. He was clearly showing weakness, probing the specific situation of the formation, and looking for the metal and wood magnetism space. Although Aog did not know what Xiaohua did in the metal and wood magnetism space, Aog already knew that Xiaohua must have done something, and he must have the confidence to take the metal and wood magnetism space from the dragon image formation. Moreover, Aog knew that what he saw was definitely just a glimpse of a leopard through a tube. It was definitely not all of Xiaohua's methods. The defense that Aoyu mentioned might be a joke in Xiaohua's eyes. Sure enough, just as Aoyu finished speaking, the four dragons once again activated their dragon power, wanting to strengthen the dragon image formation. Wen Chu, who had been controlling the Heaven and Earth Pagoda without any movement, suddenly moved again. Clang! Wen Chu raised the 3-foot sword in his hand, and the flying sword let out a loud roar, and a cold light that made the 4 old dragons tremble with fear rushed out from the flying sword. As Wen Chu raised his hand and the sword fell, the sword light that could split open the sky split the void, and slashed towards the dragon image formation. Not good. Quickly seeing the sword light fall on the formation, the sky formed by the dragon image melted like snow. Aoyu was shocked, and was about to tell Ao Liang and the others to be careful. Kacha! Another thunderous sound rang out, and Ao Liang's surprised voice sounded. This guy, Ao Liang said this guy for a moment, and didn't say anything else. Obviously he was shocked to death. Aog's dragon chin finally fell, because Xiaohua, who was comparable to a celestial being, was waving his hands at this time, and a huge thunder light like a thunder sword slashed into the dragon image in the sky. The thunder was more powerful than Wen Chu's flying sword, and the sky within 1,000 miles was smashed into pieces, revealing the 7 Stars Palace outside the dragon image formation. Can't let them escape, Aoyu shouted, and the dragon chi around him surged, still wanting to rely on the power of the formation to stop Xiaohua. Although Aog didn't refute Aoyu, he had already quietly spat out 4 words in his heart. Wishful thinking. Sure enough, Xiaohua didn't let Aog down. He pointed at the Kunlun mirror in the distance. Boom! The Kunlun mirror rushed out of the light beam again, and landed at the place where the flaw was hit by Xiaohua just now. Under the light beam, the dragon chi couldn't repair it no matter how hard it tried. Xiaohua made a move, and Feng Wu was not willing to fall behind. She opened her mouth again. Clang! Another sword chi pierced into the tip of the Heaven and Earth Pagoda like lightning, and the Heaven and Earth Pagoda made a roaring sound, pulled out of the restriction, and rushed to the dragon image in the sky. There's still me. The celestial being kicked the remaining half of the dragon image to Feng Wu's mouth, and with a roar, he punched the dragon image in the sky above his head. Seeing this, Xiaohua also laughed and said, Good, I will compete with you to see who is stronger." With that, Xiaohua's transcendence golden body also raised its fists and hit the edge of the Kunlun mirror's light beam, as if it was burning the sky. Boom! The 4 old dragons could no longer hold on under the huge impact, and the dragon image in the sky instantly collapsed, revealing the entire space of the 7 Stars Palace in front of Xiaohua again. Xiaohua looked at the 7 tower-shaped halls that had already lost their luster, and then looked at the 3 large words 7 Stars Hall, that similarly did not have any dragon aura. He sneered and said, "Since it's like this, we might as well go all the way." Haha, very good. At this time, Fengwu had already swallowed the entire dragon image. She spread her wings and took the lead to fly out of the dragon image formation. And when she heard Xiaohua's words, she spread her wings and rushed to the top of the 7 Stars Palace with the power of the stars and moon. Little Sheng will also lend you a hand. When Chu put away the heaven and earth pagoda, and the noble qi around his body surged, and a huge sub-body came out of his body. Boom! Boom! As the sub-body waved its fists, a pillar of noble qi came out of the void and crazily fell on the top of the 7 Stars Palace. Breaking bricks and removing tiles is my strong suit. The celestial being rushed out while stepping on clouds, and shouted loudly. His whole body curled up into a ball, and rushed toward the 7 Stars Palace. Chapter 43:12. Boom! The entire 7 Stars Palace was shaking, and the entire seabed was shaking. The roof of the 7 Stars Palace suddenly rose up and down. The 4 old dragons that were originally hidden in the palace were no longer able to control the formation and their dragon bodies. Just as the 4 dragon-shaped corridors were revealed, their dragon bodies were also lifted up by the impact, whether it was Ao Qian, Ao Xian, or even the 100,000 members of the sea race were all dumbfounded. They stared dumbfoundedly at the 4 consecrated dragon bodies floating in the sea like broken ribbons. As the 7 Stars Palace shook, the nearby dragon palace was also affected. "We'll hold on," Aou's hysterical voice sounded. Although his voice was old, it was filled with dignity. Now, in the ears of the members of the sea race, it was filled with dejection and powerlessness. Although Aou said hold on, everyone knew that the 4 old dragons would not be able to hold on any longer. Boom! In front of the 100,000 members of the sea race, the roof of the 7 Stars Palace blossomed with light. The 7 tower-shaped palaces really flew up like the 7 stars of the Big Dipper. They landed in the blue water that had already been turned into countless whirlpools by the tyrannical force. Although they were still in the shape of 7 stars, they no longer had their previous might. Under the dispirited 7 Stars Palace, there were 4 even more dispirited old dragons. In the eyes of the 100,000 members of the sea race, the 4 old consecrated experts of the South Sea were almost invincible. Although they struggled to maintain their dignity, how could the 4 old dragons whose draconic force was almost exhausted compare to the attacks of Xiaohua, the Celestial, and Wenchu? Their dragon bodies were like venomous snakes that had died in the winter, powerlessly curling up in the countless whirlpools. The South Sea Great General was truly shocked. The confidence he had in the 4 old consecrated experts instantly withered. His dragon claw was already tightly holding the Great General's command flag, but there was an indescribable sweat in his dragon claw. This was truly strange in the eyes of the dragons. Who is so bold? Who dares to cause trouble in my South Sea Dragon Palace? At this moment, a dignified voice came from the sea. This voice was very strange. It did not come from a single direction, but from every drop of water within 1,000 li of the 7 Stars Palace. It was as if countless voices were speaking at the same time. Then, a wave of aura swept over from the direction of the Dragon Palace like a stormy sea, instantly covering all the members of the sea race. Royal Father. Ao Qian was like a student who had studied hard for more than 10 years, and was about to take the imperial examination. He had been scheming for so long, and now it was time to test it. As long as he passed this stage, the position of the Crown Prince of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace would be his. Of course, at the same time, there was also an indescribable bitterness in his mouth. He was very clear that if the South Sea Dragon King had returned a moment later, Xiaohua would have rushed out of the 7 Stars Palace, and he would have fanned the flames at the side. Xiaohua might have flung his sleeves and left. That kind of situation might have been more advantageous to him. Unfortunately, the South Sea Dragon King had already arrived. He could only think about what he should say in his heart to deal with this unprecedented opportunity. The South Sea tribe was very familiar with the South Sea Dragon King's aura. Hearing that the Dragon King had returned, the courage that was previously defeated by Xiaohua was instantly reborn. Although they didn't dare to panic because they were facing a powerful enemy, the sea tribe still roared. "Welcome back to the palace, Dragon King." That resounding voice covered the sea within 1,000 miles. A fierce aura was born from the overturned ocean's great formation. Under this fierce aura, the chaotic sea currents above the Seven Stars Palace seemed to have calmed down a little. Following the cheers of the sea tribe, clouds abruptly appeared from the source of the voice. These clouds were like light and shadow, like water vapor. In just a few breaths' time, they passed through the surging sea water that was struck by Xiaohua's strength and landed on the heads of the sea tribe. The clouds swayed several times, and a dragon body wearing a bright yellow robe appeared from these clouds. However, this dragon body was rather fragmented. Some of the dragon's head was on a cloud, while some of the dragon's tail was on another cloud. When the dragon's head was on a cloud, a simple dragon crown was revealed. The golden light on the dragon crown scattered, and all the clouds gathered together. A complete South Sea Dragon King stood on a cloud once again. As soon as the South Sea Dragon King appeared, all the might from before was quickly withdrawn and gathered on the South Sea Dragon King's body. An imposing aura that made tens of thousands of people prostrate themselves was once again emitted from his dragon body that was only a few hundred feet long. Father Grief appeared on Ao Qian's face. He hurriedly rushed over and shouted, "You're finally back." That shout before he could finish speaking, the South Sea Dragon King's face that was covered by the golden light of the dragon crown flashed with a cold light. The dragon claw that was hidden under the Dragon King's robe flicked slightly, and Ao Qian was immediately imprisoned within 1,000 feet of him. Then, the Dragon King waved his dragon claw in the sea, and a huge yellow shadow appeared out of thin air, and landed on the Seven Stars Palace. It immediately suppressed the multicolored light that rushed out. Then thousands of dragon patterns crazily surged out from the shadow. Buzz the seawater in the Seven Stars Palace immediately condensed. Wu the seawater within a few hundred miles turned into a dragon claw and smashed towards the Seven Stars Palace. The South Sea Dragon King sneered and said, "Since you dare to cause trouble in my South Sea Dragon Palace, why don't you dare to report your name?" Ao Qian was instantly restrained by the South Sea Dragon King, and he was so scared that his liver and guts were torn apart. When he heard the Dragon King's question, his heart immediately relaxed. He thought to himself, "Damn it, so father was afraid that Xiaohua would take out the name of the Dragon Master, so he didn't let me speak at this moment." Xiaohua originally wanted to rush out of the Seven Stars Palace. When he heard the dragon races roar and saw the seawater condensing into a huge force and smashing down, how could he not know that the South Sea Dragon King, Ao Tsongda, had returned? His figure slightly stagnated, and his eyes turned a few times. He raised his hand and patted the top of his head. Kachacha lightning spurted out from the top of Xiaohua's head. This lightning condensed into the shape of a palm that was several hundred miles in size and grabbed towards the dragon claw. Rumble, another sound like the collapse of a mountain, and the earth resounded. The 100,000 members of the sea race were already numb to this sound. They only stared blankly as the lightning clashed with the dragon claw, and were annihilated at the same time. Within the several thousand miles of sea area, countless cracks appeared in the void. Not only did the seawater fall in, but there were also void fluctuations rushing into the seawater, causing even more explosions. "How dare you, human?" Ao Tsongda's face was filled with astonishment. However, he still didn't let Xiaohua speak. The dragon claw stretched forward and became 1,000 feet long, slapping towards the Seven Stars Palace. This claw was different from the previous one. A mysterious spatial force was born from the dragon claw. Not only did it penetrate the water, it also triggered the earth dragon form that Xiaohua didn't break. In an instant, the magic power around Xiaohua's body froze. The nascent soul in his lower dantian gave birth to a feeling of suffocation. It was as if all the divine abilities related to Taoist spells were sealed. Strange. Xiaohua was somewhat stunned. He thought to himself, "Is this old Dragon King retarded? Why is he acting like the 4 old consecrators? He wants to show off his power as soon as he comes up. Could it be that they don't want to know the truth?" Whoosh! While Xiaohua was puzzled, a sword light soared into the sky from the Seven Stars Palace. It was like the rising sun, and no darkness could block its dazzling brilliance. Ao Tsongda's sealing force was suddenly split in half by this sword light. The sword light even broke through the imprisonment of the dragon claw and fell on top of Ao Tsongda's dragon claw. Clang, a golden sound resounded. The dragon claw slightly trembled and immediately retracted. From the Seven Stars Palace, Wen Chu flew out along with the sword light. Damn old dragon! The celestial scolded and also flew out. His bronze fist struck the sea. With a loud bang, the sea that was not completely shattered before was once again shattered into pieces. Countless tiny whirlpools swarmed out. But with a phoenix cry, the power of the stars and the moon carried the phoenix parasol out. The phoenix parasol's phoenix eyes were like lightning, sweeping across the South Sea Dragon King Ao Tsongda. That sharp gaze seemed to be able to penetrate the golden light of the dragon crown, causing Ao Tsongda's dragon eyes to slightly shrink. The sea race within 1,000 li were still fine, but the group of dragons all trembled. An unspeakable fear involuntarily arose in their hearts, as if this phoenix was the natural enemy of the dragon race. Ao Tsongda, after the phoenix parasol, Xiaohua walked out of the Seven Stars Palace step by step, like there was a huge staircase in the sea. Xiaohua's golden body had already slowly converged, turning into an ordinary human form. He said, "Look, who am I?" Oh. Seeing Xiaohua walk out, the South Sea Dragon King Ao Tsongda had no choice but to stop his attack. His gaze swept across Xiaohua's surroundings, the 4 old consecrators who had already returned to normal, and he said, "You look like a human cultivator. However, in this king's impression, it seems that I have never seen an expert with such profound cultivation like you who doesn't know the rules." Xiaohua's eyes slightly narrowed, looking at the extremely eye-catching reddish-yellow dragon horn on top of the South Sea Dragon King's head, and then looking at the face covered by the golden light of the dragon crown, he sneered in his heart. He had just understood that Ao Tsongda didn't allow him to speak, not because he didn't want to know the truth. It was because he wanted to understand the truth too much. He wanted to take the initiative in this matter in his own hands. With the title of Dragon Master, how could he ask? Only by taking him down without waiting for him to speak could Ao Tsongda be at ease to find out the truth of the matter. Unfortunately, how could Xiaohua put his own life in the hands of a dragon? Even if he was the Lord of the South Sea. "I am Dao Sek Xiaohua." Xiaohua didn't take the meaning of Ao Tsongda's words to heart, and only proudly replied, 200 years ago, in the Dragon Island's Dragon Palace Hall, I was favored by 11 elders and was bestowed with the title of Dragon Master. I don't know if His Majesty the Dragon King has any impression of it. Ao Tsongda sucked in a breath of cold air and said in surprise, "Dragon Master? You are Xiaohua, Dragon Master Xiao." Ao Tsongda's tone was so surprised that it made Xiaohua's heart startled. He nodded slightly and said, "Yes, I am Xiaohua." Chapter 43:13. Well, back then, Dragon Island told the entire dragon race, including my South Sea Dragon Palace, that there was a dragon master in my dragon race. And there was also a video, but it has been more than 200 years. This king doesn't have a deep impression of it. Ao Tsongshu didn't deny it and said, "Today, when you mentioned it, this king just remembered. Moreover, you look exactly the same as in the video. It doesn't seem wrong." Well, Xiaohua smiled faintly and didn't say anything, waiting for Ao Tsongshu's but. Sure enough, Ao Tsongshu changed the topic and said with some puzzlement, "But, Dragon Master Xiao has never come to my South Sea. This king has never seen Dragon Master Xiao's original appearance. Moreover, this king heard that the magic of Taoism is profound. It's not difficult for a person to transform into another person. This king is not a human. It's not easy to distinguish whether you are the real Dragon Master Xiao or not. Oh, isn't there a saying in the human race? Words have no proof? Does Dragon Master Xiao have any proof?" Damn it, Xiaohua couldn't help but curse. He already knew that the dragon race was cunning, and now that he saw the leader of a group of cunning dragon kings, he was naturally prepared. But after listening to Ao Tsongshu's reasonable quibble, he was helpless in his heart. That day in the Dragon Palace, Ao Jia clearly said that the title of Dragon Master was an empty title. It was set up for the stability of Dragon Island, and even the dragon race. Where did he get the proof? Besides, even if Dragon Island gave him proof after the announcement, He was already forced into the heavenly prison at that time. How could he get the proof? Seeing Xiaohua's expression change, Ao Zhongshu smiled and waved his dragon claw. Since you can't prove that you are Dragon Master Xiao, then don't blame this king. Before Ao Concrete could finish his words, Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. The great elder of Dragon Island, Ao Jia, did not give him the Dragon Master certificate in front of the second elder, Aoe, and the others. However, when Xiaohua transferred a drop of dragon cleansing liquid to him through Ao Sheng, he specifically asked Ao Sheng to give him a dragon shell. There was nothing else in the dragon shell, except for the heavenly dragon language technique. Xiaohua did not believe that a great elder who commanded all the cunning dragons would not do anything to the dragon shell. So without waiting for Ao Concrete to finish speaking, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out the long bay. The dragon shell was in Xiaohua's hand. At first, there wasn't any strange phenomenon. It was exactly the same as when Xiaohua looked inside Bay 1. However, in just a few breaths of time, a dragon pattern suddenly appeared on the simple dragon crown on Ao Zhongda's head. That dragon pattern rushed into the dragon shell in Xiaohua's hand like a moth to a flame. A dragon's roar came from the dragon shell. Following the dragon's roar, the dragon shell flew out from Xiaohua's hand. Woo-woo, the entire dragon palace was filled with the sound of wind and clouds. Strands of dragon chi flew out from the dragon palace and landed on the dragon shell. In an instant, a dragon crown emitting crimson light appeared from the dragon shell. Crimson dragon crown? Ao Zhong was stunned. He stretched out his dragon claw a few times, but did not dare to do so. A pair of dragon eyes looked at the crimson dragon crown on Xiaohua's head with a responsible expression. Swish, the crimson dragon crown fell. An indescribable dragon chi washed over all the sea race and dragon clan like water. Ao Zhongda's face, which was originally covered by the golden light of the dragon crown, was also revealed. Even a feeling of prostration and reverence was born from the bottom of all the dragon clan's hearts. Damn Dragon Island! Ao Zhongda cursed. He tried his best to urge his dragon chi to resist the power of the dragon master from the crimson dragon crown. Seeing the brilliance of the dragon crown on Ao Zhongda's head disappear, Xiaohua asked indifferently, Ao Zhongda, do you have any other questions? No special expression could be seen on Ao Zhongda's ferocious dragon face. However, after a moment, Ao Zhongda lifted his dragon claw and brushed it at his waist. A palm-sized dragon seal appeared. That dragon seal had just appeared. Boom boom, the surrounding seawater exploded. Countless vast chi pillars fell from the void and frantically collided with the dragon seal. Immediately after, countless inscription carvings flew out from the dragon seal. These inscription carvings flew in an extremely rhythmic manner in the seawater. In a few breaths, they transformed into an earthy yellow dragon avatar that coiled on the dragon seal. Traces of clouds gushed out from the inscription carvings on the dragon avatar's body. In this misty cloud, a myriad of immortal palaces faintly appeared. Xiaohua was dumbfounded. He looked at the dragon seal in Ao Zhongda's hand with a stupefied expression. The immortal palaces on the dragon seal were on par with the scarlet dragon crown on his head. Not only could it allow Ao Zhongda to face him directly, even the 100,000 sea race and dragon generals that besieged the Seven Stars Palace had lost their reverence for him. Ao Zhongda proudly looked at the dragon seal in his hand. The dragon avatar on the dragon seal slowly swam. He looked at Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, my dragon palace is not the Dragon Island's guardian general. It is impossible for us to not dare to act rashly just because of Dragon Master Zhao's title. Didn't the human race often say that the general is outside and the monarch's orders cannot be obeyed? Dragon Master Xiao bullied my Southern Sea Dragon Palace like this. This king wants an explanation from Dragon Master Xiao. Damn it! Xiaohua looked at the dragon seal in Ao Zhongda's hand. At first he was astonished, but then he understood. He still fell into the scheme of Ao Jia, that old fox that was even more cunning than a 10,000 years old fox. This Dragon Master Zhao's title was not just a title, it was even more real than the title of Dragon King of the Four Seas. This so-called Scarlet Dragon Crown was probably used to suppress the Dragon Crown of the Four Seas. Otherwise, it would be impossible for it to appear in front of the Dragon King's Dragon Crown. Moreover, Xiaohua also faintly felt that the Dragon Island probably already knew that the Dragon Palace had been stationed outside for many years. They held their own troops and refused to obey the orders of the Dragon Island. Perhaps they colluded with the Immortal Palace. But the Dragon Island did not have a suitable excuse and evidence, so they used his Dragon Master Zhao's title to probe. However, he was coincidentally forced into the heavenly prison. This scarlet dragon crown did not appear for 200 years. On the contrary, 200 years later, he accidentally came to the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, and also accidentally encountered Ao Qian's disobedience. Only then did the Scarlet Dragon Crown's true face was revealed. And Ao Tsongda should have already known the meaning of Dragon Master Zhao's title. This was precisely the place where he caused trouble. Sigh. Xiaohua thought so much. He looked at the distant Ao Qian again and said inwardly, "Like father, like son ah." Immediately, Xiaohua made an action that puzzled Ao Tsongda. He raised his hand and took off the Scarlet Dragon crown from his head. He said with a bitter smile, "Immortal friend Ao, this Xiao really did not expect that there were so many schemes behind this Dragon Master Xiao. If this Xiao had known earlier, this Xiao would never have accepted this title." Although the Scarlet Dragon crown was now in Xiaohua's hand, it did not transform into a dragon shell. It was still a scarlet dragon crown that was flashing with red light and overflowing with dragon qi. Ao Tsongda narrowed his eyes and watched Xiaohua put away the Scarlet Dragon crown. Then he pondered a little, and also put away the dragon seal. However, the dragon crown on top of Ao Tsongda's head no longer emitted golden light to cover Ao Tsongda's face. Ao Tsongda glanced at the damaged Seven Stars Palace and asked indifferently, "Since your excellency does not put on airs as Dragon Master, this king is also willing to have a good chat with your excellency. However, before that, can your excellency tell this king why your excellency destroyed the trial array of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace? Why did you injure 4 of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace's consecrators? Why did you push down my Seven Stars Palace?" Xiaohua touched his nose and looked at Ao Tsongda with interest. He said with a smile, "What did Ao Qian say in the message to His Majesty?" "What he said is not important." Ao Tsongda simply opened the window and spoke frankly. He did not deny the fact that he already knew Xiaohua's identity as Dragon Master. He said, "This king wants to hear your excellency's explanation." "All right." Xiaohua sighed, his head hurt. He did not like to fight, but every time he seemed to be forced to the edge of a fight, he had no choice but to fight. Then Xiaohua explained the ins and outs of the matter, and finally asked meaningfully, "This Xiao has finished. I don't know if your majesty believes it?" Ao Tsongda narrowed his eyes and seemed to be listening to Xiaohua's explanation. He also seemed to be sizing up Feng Wu, Tianren, and Wen Chu behind Xiaohua. When Xiaohua asked, he shook his head slightly and said, "You escaped into the metal and wood magnetic space to take a look. You knew that you might have been schemed against by Ao Qian, so you came out. Then, you saw the dragons suppressing you, so you fought back? Do you think this king can believe this?" "If it was me, I'm afraid I can't believe it either." Xiaohua touched his nose again. Other than the corpses of the dragons and the blood essence he dripped into the metal and wood magnetic field, he did not hide anything. But even if it was the truth, Xiaohua himself did not believe it, so how could he make Ao Tsongda believe it? Xiaohua said helplessly, "You might as well ask Ao Qian again. After all, this Xiao also does not know why he led this Xiao into this Seven Stars Palace. This Xiao does not think that he will hate this Xiao because of the experience in the Stacking Jade Legacy realm." "Ao Qian. What the hell is going on?" Ao Tsongda opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of dragon breath. The dragon qi that imprisoned Ao Qian immediately disappeared. Ao Qian immediately cried and threw himself at Ao Tsongda, shouting, "Father, you are going to take revenge for 3 brothers." Ao Tsongda's expression did not change. He slightly raised his dragon claw and helped Ao Qian up. At the same time, he stopped him from approaching and asked, "Don't worry, whoever killed my Dragon Palace's prince, this king will make him pay with blood. No matter if he is an elder of the Dragon Island or an immortal official of the Immortal Palace." Although Ao Tsongda's tone was indifferent, the hatred in his words was almost monstrous. A feeling as if a mountain was pressing down on him was born from the bottom of Ao Qian's heart. Ao Qian's heart trembled. He repeated what he had said to the South Sea's great general Ao. At the same time, he added more details. Finally, he raised his dragon claw and said, "Father, this boy only knows this. This thief who pretended to be a dragon master injured the boy and rushed into the Seven Stars Palace to snatch the metal and wood magnetic field. In order to take revenge for the boy and prevent this thief from snatching the metal and wood magnetic field, my 3 brothers hugged the training ground of my South Sea Dragon Palace's descendant and rushed into the Seven Stars Palace, and were killed by this thief. Ao Qian, are you telling the truth?" Ao Tsongda's tone was as cold as ice. His gaze seemed to be able to see through Ao Qian's heart. Chapter 43:14. Facing the incomparable pressure. Ao Qian clenched his teeth and replied, "Boy, every word is true. Boy is willing to swear to the dragon ancestor that if boy..." "No need." Ao Tsongshu stopped Ao Qian and looked at Xiaohua, asking, "Where are my 3 poor boy?" Xiaohua shrugged with an innocent face and said curiously, "Didn't this Xiao say it clearly just now? This Xiao entered the Seven Stars Palace alone, and no dragons chased after me. Moreover, this Xiao doesn't know the 3 princes of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, and doesn't know what they look like." "Thief, you're lying." Ao Qian scolded. "My 3 brothers chased you into the Seven Stars Palace. How could you not know?" "Do you have any evidence?" Xiaohua said with a smile. Ao Qian said exasperatedly, "What evidence do you need? My Southern Sea Dragon Palace's dragon generals all saw you. You came out in my big brother's carriage. If my big brother didn't agree, who could use his carriage?" "I don't know whose carriage I sat in. I only know that you gave me a token and invited me into the Seven Stars Palace." Xiaohua took out the token as he spoke. "That's because you stole my token," Ao Qian said anxiously. "Moreover, you must have killed my 3 poor brothers and their subordinates in the Seven Stars Palace and destroyed their corpses. Mn, even if you didn't destroy their corpses, you still put their corpses into your Qiankuan bag. If you have no ulterior motives, do you dare to take out your Qiankuan bag for my royal father to check?" "Humph, with this old man's status, how can I let you search my body?" Xiaohua sneered. "Moreover, if this old man wanted to kill a 7th grade essence power dragon, why would I need to destroy their corpses?" "So you're saying that you're not going to take out any evidence?" Ao Tsongxi withdrew the dragon might that was pressuring Ao Qian and looked at Xiaohua, asking coldly, "If you don't have any evidence, I'm afraid that you won't be able to clear your name. Don't blame this king for being impolite." Seeing the heavy pressure on his body suddenly disappear, Ao Qian was overjoyed. He knew that his royal father already believed him, and was ready to attack Xiaohua with all his might. However, he still looked at Xiaohua with anger and grief on his face. "Impolite?" Xiaohua looked around and laughed loudly. "Just based on your motley crew of 100,000? With just 4 old dragons like you? Do you think I can't walk out of your South Sea Dragon Palace without the Scarlet Dragon crown?" Haha. Ao Tsongxu raised his dragon claw slightly, and the 100,000 members of the Sea tribe slowly retreated. At the same time, in the seawater around the Dragon Palace, the water shimmered, and countless members of the Sea tribe appeared from the light and shadow. Layers of matrices were activated, and waves of water overflowed with Dharma power extended into the distance. Millions of murderous weapons appeared around the Seven Stars Hall. His Xiaohua's complexion changed, and he sucked in a breath of cold air. Ao Tsongda retracted his smile and said indifferently, "Although you have 3 9th-grade elemental energy friends, my Dragon Palace has 4 9th-grade elemental energy old consecrators. When this king activates the South Sea Order, all the 9th-grade dragons in the South Sea Dragon Palace will appear. Also, do you think the 4 of you can escape from my South Sea Dragon Palace's Overturn Oceans formation?" Speaking up to here, Ao Tsongda paused for a moment and said, "You also said it clearly just now. When you came in you were alone, but now you have 3 friends helping you. Presumably, the Long Bay or Qiankuan bracelet in your hands also has the corpses of other humans, or my dragon clan. If you can return the corpses of my 3 boy, maybe this king will consider giving you a dignified death. If today's matter is not spread out." "Damn it," Xiaohua said angrily. "Ao Tsongda, what does this have to do with this Xiao?" This is just a dispute between the princes of your dragon palace fighting for the dragon throne. This Xiao just happened to be there. This Xiao did see a few corpses in the 7 Stars Hall, but these corpses are definitely not this Xiao's doing. If you don't believe me, you can use the soul-searching technique on Ao Qian. With the soul-searching technique, everything will be clear. Saying that, Xiao Hua waved his hand, and more than 10 dragon corpses fell into the sea. Among them, there were a few crowns on the heads of the dragons. When he heard Xiao Hua suggest that his father searched the soul, Ao Qian was shocked again. Then, when he saw Xiao Hua give out more than 10 familiar corpses, Ao Qian was happy again. As long as the corpses were taken out by Xiao Hua would not be able to defend himself. However, when Ao Qian saw these corpses clearly, he was slightly stunned. At this moment, Xiao Hua suddenly laughed sinisterly. His large hand scooped up the sea, and a huge domain power turned into the shape of a palm, imprisoning Ao Qian out of thin air. That cold and incomparably bewitching voice sounded in Ao Qian's ears. Ao Tsongda, since you are unwilling, then let this Xiao use the soul-searching technique. I will definitely give you the truth. Feeling Xiao Hua's unparalleled magic power, Ao Qian's heart turned cold again. He shouted desperately, "Father, quickly save the boy. Everything Xiao Hua said is fake. These corpses are also deceiving father." Nonsense. Xiao Hua's voice sounded like a god. This is what this Xiao encountered in the 7 Stars Palace. How could it be fake? Father Ao Qian shouted hysterically. Big Brother and the others were split in half by Xiao Hua using a magic tool. Their heads fell off, and these corpses were all connected together just as he said this. Ao Qian suddenly woke up. His face was incomparably pale as he looked at Xiao Hua, and his entire dragon body was trembling. Hee. That's right. Xiao Hua withdrew his soul technique and magic, and said with a smile. The 3 princes and many dragon generals were all beheaded by this Xiao using a magic tool. You didn't enter the 7 Stars Palace, so how did you know? My throat was almost cut by your magic tool, and my abdomen was injured when I tried my best to dodge. Naturally, I thought you Ao Qian said until here, and was unable to continue. His nervous heart finally collapsed, and his entire dragon body collapsed in the sea, as if his dragon bones and dragon tendons were taken away by Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua smiled faintly, looked at Ao Guoshan and said, Ao Guoshan, do you understand? However, when Xiao Hua's voice came out, he immediately sensed something strange. He scanned with his divine sense, and his eyes flashed with a cold light. This was because all of the oceanic species and dragon generals were glaring at him with fury in their eyes. Not a single one of them was looking at Ao Qian. Through his divine sense, Xiao Hua had already sensed a profound restriction enveloping the surrounding space. With Xiao Hua's divine sense, he didn't know when it was set up. Sure enough, he heard Ao Guoshan coldly reply, Thief, this king naturally saw it. It was you who killed the 3 princes of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace, and more than 10 of their subordinates. You also threatened the 4th prince of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace, and wanted to kill him as well. Xiao Hua looked at the corpses in front of him, and with a sweep of his divine sense he put them into the space and laughed loudly. Ao Guoshan, so you already had a plan in your heart. In the end, you just wanted to save your Southern Sea Dragon Palace's face, and push this matter to this Xiao. Previously, this Xiao was still sighing, like father like son, but now it seems that this is indeed the case. You have to think carefully. I hope you won't regret today's decision in the future. Xiao Hua. Ao Guoshan was not moved, and said indifferently, As the Dragon Master, you relied on Dragon Island as your backing, and ignored my Dragon Palace of the 4 seas. Today, you even used the excuse of stealing metal and wood to kill the 3 princes of my Southern Sea Dragon Palace, leaving my Southern Sea Dragon Palace without a suitable descendant to take over the dragon throne. What intentions do you have? Who instructed you to do this? If you honestly confess, my Dragon Palace of the 4 seas will give you a chance to redeem yourself. Otherwise, don't blame my Dragon Palace of the 4 seas for being ruthless and capturing you to the Immortal Palace. Hearing this, Xiao Hua's teeth hurt. For Dragon Palace of the 4 seas. In an instant, Xiao Hua understood a lot more. He smiled bitterly. Ao Guoshan didn't just know the truth of the matter. This guy already knew what had happened when he received Ao Qian's message. Why didn't he rush back from the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace earlier? He was probably using this time to discuss with the other 3 Dragon Kings. Ao Qian's brother killing scheme was fully used by them, using his identity as the Dragon Master to frame him to the end. Not only did they want to frame him for killing the 3 princes of the Southern Sea, Zhensheng also wanted to use him to negotiate with Dragon Island, and use him to provoke a fight between Dragon Island and the Immortal Palace, so that the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas could obtain the greatest benefits. As for Ao Qian, he was just a clown. After he was captured, he would definitely be killed. Of course, Ao Qian's ending was a great life, a glorious death, and he would probably go down in infamy for thousands of years. Xiaohua was so angry that he laughed. He looked around and said with a smile, Ao Guoshan, no wonder you don't regret it. So this Overturn Oceans formation is no longer the Overturn Oceans formation. It has already turned into the 4 Seas formation. 3 Dragon Kings? Quickly show yourself. Let me see which 4 dragons are thick-skinned enough to be the master of the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. How dare you? From the eastern position, a silver-white dragon aura rushed into the sea region. Within the silver-colored radiance, a majestic old dragon wearing dragon armor and a dragon crown appeared. The silver-white dragon horn on top of this old dragon's head looked very eye-catching. The moment that old dragon revealed himself, he immediately berated, "Scoundrel, as the dragon master of my dragon island, why don't you use your dragon power to do dragon affairs? You actually wanted to kill the descendant of my dragon race and snatch my dragon palace's dragon throne? If I don't capture you and bring you to the Dragon Palace, how can I see your filthy thoughts? How can I cut off the black hand that has infiltrated my Dragon Palace?" Xiaohua smiled slightly, looked at the old dragon and asked abruptly, "You are the master of the Eastern Sea Dragon Palace, Ao Qian, right? I thought you would say, thief, you actually dared to disguise yourself as Dragon Master Xiao and come to the Southern Sea Dragon Palace to stir up trouble. But I didn't expect you to immediately recognize me as Dragon Master Xiao. You really disappoint me." Chapter 43:15. Ao Qian stood there with a majestic aura. The silver-white dragon qi spread rapidly in the sea. The dragon race in the east prostrated themselves before the dragon qi, and the several 100,000 sea tribe members prostrated themselves in worship. Ao Qian turned a deaf ear to Xiaohua's question, and a cold expression appeared in his eyes as he looked down at Xiaohua. "Shameless thief." On the west side of Ao Qian, a fiery voice boomed like thunder. It was the West Sea Lord Ao Hong who had appeared after Xiaohua had released the Grand Mist Ancestor from the Sea Eye. He was also clad in scarlet battle armor as he stood above the Sea Tribe. Ao Hong looked at Xiaohua and scolded, "When this king heard that you risked your life to kill Long Sea on the Dragon Island and saved my 4 Seas dragon race, I praised you and thought you were a chivalrous person. Although you were conferred the title of Dragon Master, many of the West Seas dragon race were dissatisfied and wanted to find trouble with you. This king persuaded them and said good words for you. But I didn't expect you to be such a heartless person, coveting the 4 Seas Dragon Palace so much. Everything that happened before was just a show between you and Ao Sheng, right? You're really sorry for the trust this king had in you that day." Ao Qian's figure appeared, and his scarlet dragon horns dyed the sea red. The dragon qi that was as brilliant as the sunset was especially beautiful, and it enveloped the west side. However, this scarlet dragon qi was the same as the silver-white dragon qi. When it was about 1,000 zhang in front of Xiaohua, it stopped and surrounded Xiaohua. Whether it was the scarlet dragon qi or the silver-white dragon qi, there were countless dragon runes inside. Each dragon rune was like a small flood dragon, full of power. Xiaohua smiled and turned to look at Ao Hong. He asked, "Ao Hong, this Xiao risked his life to save the 4 Seas Dragon Palace's dragon race in the stacked jadeite relic realm, and it's just a few words of trust in your mouth? If you're willing to abandon this trust because of a few words of suspicion, I think, this kind of trust, this Xiao doesn't care, this kind of trust is not worth anything." "Damn it," the West Seas Dragon King, Ao Hong, who had been at the top for a long time, roared, and scarlet flames rushed out from his body, burning the sea within 100 li. "Second brother, Don't worry. In the north opposite Ao Tsongda, an emerald green dragon chi gushed out, and a cold voice came from the dragon chi. Then he looked at the area where the dragon aura had spread for hundreds of kilometers. First there were tiny popping sounds. Then strange seeds the size of a thumb began to sprout. Every sprout was in the shape of a dragon. It seemed that every sprout was the source of the sound. When Xiaohua's gaze swept across the center of these green sprouts, a simple and unadorned dragon crown was revealed. A pair of emerald green dragon horns exuded the majesty of the dragon race. The green sprouts gathered towards the dragon horns. In the blink of an eye, the North Sea Dragon King Aogo's figure, clad in an emerald green dragon robe, emerged from the green sprouts. Aogo roared. The North Sea Dragon Palace is absolutely irreconcilable with Xiaohua. If you want to fight, let me do it first. If I don't grind his bones to dust, I won't be able to quench the hatred in my heart. Another ungrateful bastard. Xiaohua looked at Aogo. Though he'd never seen the North Sea Dragon King before, when he thought of what he'd encountered in Feather Spirit Bay, Yuan Ye's encounter in the arena, and what he'd seen on the dragon boat, he couldn't help but feel a wave of disgust. A cold light flashed through his eyes as he unceremoniously rebuked. I saved a descendant of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in the stacked emerald relic realm of Dragon Island. Even Dragon Island was grateful, so why should the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas be grateful to me? Ao Zheng and the other dragon generals of the North Sea Dragon Palace weren't killed by me. What kind of irreconcilable hatred do I have for the North Sea Dragon Palace? Didn't I ruin Ao Jing's wishful thinking and take away Jiang Hong of the Heavenly Abode River? The dragons of the Three Rivers and Four Seas were born from the same root. You all killed your own bloodline and committed despicable acts. How can you still have the face to slander me? Speaking up to here, Xiaohua looked at the South Sea Dragon King Ao Shuaguang again. He raised his hand and pointed at Ao Qian, who was paralyzed on the ground. He said, "Don't blame Ao Qian for killing his three brothers. The dragons of your dragon palace have always been so cruel and against the laws of nature. You all have no right to blame Ao Qian. I want you to quickly wash your ass clean and give him the throne of the South Sea Dragon Palace. He's already surpassed his master." Immediately after, Xiaohua chanted righteousness. His imposing manner was like a rainbow. His voice was like a heavenly sound that rippled through the sea for thousands of li. I am the master of the dragons. You all didn't respect me and instead worshipped me. What is the reason for this? Even if you all turned to the immortal palace and got close to the Confucian cultivators, this kind of disregard for the great Tao of scripture, and goes against the laws of nature, isn't that what the Confucian cultivators despise? In the past, Dragon Island didn't punish you because of your bloodline. Today I, as the master of the dragons, represent the will of the heavens and punish you. Exterminate you. Kacha. Following Xiaohua's voice, the 5 Qi righteous thunder appeared out of thin air and enveloped the surrounding sea. Not only did it scare the dragon kings of the Four Seas to the point that they slightly shrank their heads, even the thousands of sea race were scared witless. Their previous spirit was instantly extinguished by 30%. Ah! Ao Qian laughed loudly. He raised his eyes and saw that the dragon chi of the dragon kings of the Four Seas had already trapped Xiaohua. That silvery white, scarlet red, earthy yellow, and emerald green multicolored light clearly surged together. Outside the multicolored light, the millions of sea race and dragon generals arranged themselves into a formation and shouted loudly. Xiaohua, the so-called master of the dragons, is nothing more than a false name of Dragon Island. What qualifications do those old undying dragons of Dragon Island have to confer you the title of master of the dragons on our behalf? This master of the dragons is nothing more than a joke. Did you really take it seriously? Besides, regardless of whether you are a master of the dragons or not, today you ambushed and killed the 3 princes of the South Sea Dragon Palace. You just shifted the blame of killing the princes to Ao Qian. This kind of crime deserves to be punished. This king will consider that you have the title of master of the dragons. As long as you surrender, we will definitely not take your life. We will only capture you and bring you to Dragon Island. All the crimes will be judged by those old undying dragons of Dragon Island. We will not interfere with your life or death. Ao Qian, you are really sick. Xiao Hua sighed and shook his head. This is the sharp-tongued sword technique of our human race's Confucian cultivators. You are from the dragon race and have just settled down in the immortal palace not long ago. You have only learned a little bit of it. I'm afraid that you don't have the ability to subdue people without fighting. You actually dare to show off in front of this Xiao? Damn it. Xiao Hua's words were really cursing dragons without spitting out vulgarities. It made Ao Qian's dragon face turn red. His entire dragon body suddenly swelled up. That silvery white dragon qi mixed with dragon might surge toward Xiao Hua. He shouted fiercely. Since you want to die, then this king will fulfill your wish. Kill. Seeing the Dragon King of the East Sea make a move, the other 3 Dragon Kings also roared and urged their dragon qi to pounce toward Xiao Hua. The 4-colored draconic qi had already sealed off the sea region within a radius of 1,000 li long ago, only leaving a space of about 1,000 zhang around Xiao Hua. At this moment, the 4 Dragon Kings were enraged. The draconic qi surged violently like a huge wave, revealing mountains, rivers, trees, and other kinds of strange phenomena. These strange phenomena mixed with the draconic might fell, instantly squeezing the space of 1,000 zhang into a pillar. Wang. A huge rumbling sound came from this pillar of qi. Immediately after, countless draconic marks crazily swam around the edge of the pillar of qi, forming one after another powerful whirlpool. This whirlpool swept up wind blades, rushing toward Xiao Hua, Wen Chu, Sky Being, and Feng Wu. Xiao Hua sneered. He simply disdained to make a move. Wen Chu opened his mouth. Wu. A mouthful of sword qi spurted out. It transformed into countless small swords and flocked towards these wind blades. Boom boom boom. A series of rumbling sound came again. The sword qi collided with the wind blades and gave rise to fist-sized qi explosion. As soon as this qi explosion appeared, the dragon patterns beside the whirlpool immediately drilled into this qi explosion. Ta-ta-ta. Another sound like wind and rain filling the entire building. All the qi explosion instantly transformed into broken light shadows. These light shadows swayed rapidly in the midst of the violent storm and collided with each other. Every time they collided, these light shadows would stick together and form a new light shadow. In just a few breaths' time, the interior of the pillar of qi where Xiao Hua was at was actually completely covered by these light shadows. Just at this moment, 4 beautiful radiances blossomed from the dragon horns of the 4 Dragon Kings of the East Sea. Wherever the radiances fell, the 4-colored dragon qi began to fuse. And when the radiances poured into the surroundings of Xiao Hua and the others, bursts of lightning were unexpectedly born from the light shadows. All the light shadows flickered and unexpectedly transformed into a surging sea. And the space around Xiao Hua was also drawn into it. Oh! Xiao Hua was a little surprised because he already had some understanding. He felt that this so-called 4 Seas Great Formation might be the same as the 7 Stars Great Formation from before. It might be a space independent of the sea, and it might even be a place controlled by the domain of the 4 Dragon Kings of the East Sea. Therefore, he had long been on guard and transmitted a message to Wen Chu, Tianren, and Feng Wu, preparing to give a fatal blow when the Great Formation was first formed. However, when the light shadows were born, there were no fluctuations of magic power near Xiao Hua at all, nor were there any tyrannical forces that wanted to pull in. Everything was completed within the light shadows. Even when the space around Xiao Hua was drawn into the sea, there were no abnormalities. It was as if the sun was easily shining. Xiao Hua and the others were almost involuntarily trapped within the 4 Seas Great Formation. However, when Xiao Hua saw this kind of light shadows change, he only urged his divine ability to protect his body. Although the 4 Dragon Kings of the East Sea were powerful, they were only at the 9th grade of essence energy. Xiao Hua didn't believe that they could be more powerful than a 9th grade Dao transformation cultivator of the ruins, and more difficult to deal with than a devil emperor of the devil race. When the 4 Seas Great Formation was first formed, Xiao Hua looked around. Sure enough, it was a huge space above the sea. But he saw that at the top of the space was a 4-colored sky. When his divine sense swept past, he couldn't see the end. Among the 4 colors of the sky, there were countless dragon shadows and dragon roars appearing. Looking at the surface of the sea, the surging waves were filled with the shadows of the 4 Dragon Kings of the East Sea. There were so many overlapping shadows that it was impossible to distinguish which one was the real Dragon King. Under the surface of the sea, his divine sense couldn't penetrate, and he couldn't see what exactly was there. Chapter 43:16. Xiaohua narrowed his eyes. Although he let out a cold snort, he was alarmed. After all, the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were the supreme dragon clan in the 3 continents. They had been famous for a long time, and Xiaohua could not compare with them in terms of cultivation age. Before Xiaohua entered the heavenly prison, he was a severed divinity cultivator. In terms of combat strength, he was almost at the 6th tier of Yuan Qi. However, after entering the middle of 8th level of essence energy, the gap between the upper, middle, and lower levels would become extremely large. Every level would require tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation to fill in the gap. Right now, Xiaohua's realm was at the lower of 9th level of essence energy. His combat strength was only between middle and upper of 9th level of essence energy. He had not truly reached the supreme upper of 9th level of essence energy. Therefore, when facing the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas, Xiaohua appeared to have a card up his sleeve, but in his heart, he still did not dare to underestimate them in the slightest. Haha! Ao Tsongshu's wild laughter echoed throughout the entire space. You are indeed a dragon who used the dragon cleansing liquid in the folded Emerald Legacy land. You are so arrogant. You didn't even blink when you saw me and my brothers constructing the Four Seas formation. Do you not put the formation of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas in your eyes? Did the elders of the Dragon Island give you some divine ability that is beyond our Dragon Palace? Even if he is a dragon who used the dragon cleansing liquid, he has only condensed his body for 200 years. How powerful can he be? I don't believe he is my match. Ao Go, the Dragon King of the North Sea, shouted. Ha ha ha. Xiaohua laughed so hard that he almost rocked back and forth. A moment later, he straightened his back, pointed his finger at the ocean surface and said, So, all of you are just putting on a show with me? You are actually trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And your real target is Reverend Yun. Reverend Yun? Yes, the 11th clan of the Dragon Island that has been missing for a long time. Ao Qian, who had been silent all this time, said faintly. That's a good name. Reverend Yun. Are you still not going to show yourself? Xiaohua looked at the surface of the Four Seas Great Array with interest. The surface of the sea was still Lihan Heaven in the forgotten realm of stacked emerald. However, it was clear that there was no water in Lihan Heaven. The interior of the Four Seas Great Array was completely condensed from the sea crystals of the sea. The waves on the surface of the sea rippled. Every drop of water contained terrifying power. Reverend Yin. Seeing that Xiaohua didn't say anything, Feng Wu, Tianren, and Wen Chu also didn't say anything, Ao Qian laughed and said, It doesn't matter if you admit it or not. Since you have transformed into Xiaohua's appearance, everything that you have done in the South Sea Dragon Palace will soon reach the Dragon Palace, and my Dragon Palace of the Four Seas will definitely escort you to the Dragon Island. Of course, all of these crimes are Xiaohua's and have nothing to do with you. If you are interested, why don't the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas make a deal with you? Damn it. Xiaohua smiled bitterly, touched his nose helplessly and asked, Ao Qian, why are you so sure that I'm Reverend Yin? Why am I not Xiaohua? Could it be another human cultivator? What's so strange about that? Others may not know, but how could the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas not know? Before Ao Qian could answer, Ao Go, the Dragon King of North Sea, spoke first. The 2 biggest secrets of the trial on the Dragon Island are the appearance of Dragon Sea and the body forming of Reverend Yun. All the dragons in the 3 rivers and 4 seas were eagerly waiting for the appearance of Reverend Yun. But after the trial, apart from Xiaohua's whereabouts, he had appeared everywhere on the hidden immortal continent, and even reached the sacred realm of 1,000 demons. But Reverend Yun had never shown himself before anyone. So what is Reverend Yun doing now? Of course, he is in a secluded meditation to form his body. It has been 200 years since then. I suppose Reverend Yun has succeeded in forming his body, and is now thinking of taking action after staying still for so long? What you said is true. I really didn't think so much about it. Xiaohua nodded. He had understood that the Xiaohua mentioned by the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas was none other than the little white dragon who had transformed into his appearance. Of course, the little white dragon had made it clear that his soul was similar to his own. Even the revered Vairocana could not tell them apart, so how could these dragons do it? Besides, Aojia did not mention anything about the little white dragon's body forming, so none of the elders of the Dragon Island knew about it. What was more, the little white dragon was hiding in the shadow of Reverend Yun. Even if Aoxing knew about it, he would never have guessed it. As he had not shown himself in the heavenly prison for over 200 years, the little white dragon must have shown himself and been recognized as him by others. As a result, when he suddenly appeared in the Dragon Palace of South Sea, Ao Qian and the other Dragon Kings immediately understood that he was Reverend Yun, who had been missing for a long time. Therefore, sometimes there was no story without coincidences, and it did make sense. Immediately after, the Dragon King's voice once again reverberated within the Great Formation. What's more, Xiaohua is merely a Taoist cultivator. 200 years ago, it was true that he was already outstanding amongst the 4th or 5th grade of origin energy, but do you think that the real Xiaohua would have your current strength? Ao Tsong smiled and said, first you went through the 9th tier trial in the Dragon Palace of South Sea, then you destroyed the 7 Stars Formation, and finally, you destroyed the Dragon Image Formation formed by 4 old sinecures. Reverend Yun now has the overall strength of a 9th tier cultivator. Apart from the dragon cleansing liquid of our Dragon Island, is there any other miracle in the 3 continents? Xiaohua smiled wryly. Looking at these self-righteous Dragon Kings, he asked curiously, since you already know that I am Reverend Yun, and are ready to use me as Xiaohua, why do you still take out the dragon seal of the Immortal Palace? I get it now. Suddenly, Xiaohua was enlightened. He looked at the surface of the ocean smilingly and said, is this the deal mentioned by the Dragon King of East Sea? Ha ha ha, that's right. When Ao Qian saw that Xiaohua was enlightened, he laughed and said, since Reverend Yun has understood it, we don't have to hide it from you anymore. Using you as Xiaohua is an open matter, but we still want to make a private deal with you. Not only did the 9 elders of the Dragon Island do nothing, and never cared about the grudges between the 3 rivers and the 4 seas, they also meddled in the affairs of the Dragon Palace of 4 Seas. How can such a dragon palace still be the supreme dragon palace in the hearts of the dragons? If Reverend Yun has the intention, we the Dragon Palace of 4 Seas. At this point, Ao Qian gave Feng Wu and the others a look and did not continue. However, he had made his meaning very clear. Xiaohua found it rather funny that Ao Qian was showing off the idioms of the human race, such as do nothing. But he did not show it on his face. Instead, he looked at Feng Wu and the others and said, Ao Qian, do you mean that if I have the intention to be an elder of the Dragon Palace, you the Dragon Palace of 4 Seas and the Immortal Palace can help me? An elder of the Dragon Palace. Reverend Yun, do you care? If I'm not mistaken, Ao Jia must have promised you the position of the 10th elder of the Dragon Palace that day. You didn't agree to it at that time. So do you care about the position of an ordinary elder now? Ao Qian did not answer Xiaohua's question, but asked him a question instead. Xiaohua smiled and said, so Dragon King of East Sea means you can help me become the great elder? I didn't say that. This is just your guess. Ao Qian was not fooled. He answered indifferently, of course, if you have such an intention, I can certainly consider. At this point, Xiaohua had come to the point where the dagger was revealed. After pondering for a while, he looked at the surface of the ocean where no Dragon King had shown up, then said, I think the name Reverend Yun is quite good, and I don't want to change it to Ao Jia for the time being. Damn it. Ao Hong's voice rang out. Didn't I tell you? A dragon who has condensed his body with dragon cleansing liquid is definitely arrogant. If we don't beat him to a pulp, he will never know his own shallowness. Don't worry, second brother. Reverend Yun and I are all dragons. It's best if we don't start a war, so we don't have to embarrass ourselves. But if we do, who knows what accidents will happen? Elder brother, there's no need to talk so much with him. Ao Go was somewhat impatient as well. Reverend Yun has been hiding for 200 years without being discovered by the Dragon Palace. He must have been hidden by the Dragon Island. I'm afraid he is of the same mind as Ao Jia of the Dragon Palace. Let's suppress this and use his dragon body. Alright. Ao Qian seemed to be in a difficult position as well. He said to Xiaohua, Reverend Yin, you've heard it. I've tried my best to be on good terms with you, so I can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But, you just don't agree, which puts me in a difficult position. I think you also know that your body, which is condensed with dragon cleansing liquid, is a supreme treasure to the dragons. Now you've delivered it to the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas. If you still don't agree, don't blame the Dragon Palace of the 4 Seas for killing you. There's no need for that. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, I'll never agree. Just do it. Suppress him. Without hesitation, Ao Qian gave a furious roar. A loud dragon roar rang out as a dragon body, over 100,000 feet long, rushed out of the ocean. And all the dragon forms of the Dragon King of East Sea were gathered in it. As Ao Qian's dragon body was revealed, the whole space began to tremble, and a suffocating sealing force rolled toward Xiaohua and the others. Let me see what the Dragon King of East Sea is capable of. Xiaohua smiled coldly. A rumbling sound came from his body as he exercised the reflection of heaven and earth cultivation technique. A strange light burst out of his body and cracked the spatial force of the 4 Seas formation. As Ao Qian's dragon body took shape, the eastern position of the 4 Seas formation was filled with silver-white dragon power. The dragon power transformed into sharp spears, which moved up and down with Ao Qian's movements. Roar almost at the same time, Ao Hong, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go revealed themselves in the west, south and north respectively. The power of their domains grew several times stronger, suppressing Feng Wu and the others. Haha, the 4 Seas formation is indeed interesting. After receiving Xiaohua's order, the Celestial snorted, took out the bone dragon demonic spear, and pointed it at Ao Go. But it's really wishful thinking for you to suppress me with your strength. Little dragon, let me teach you a lesson. Chapter 43:17. As he spoke, the celestial being stepped on a cloud of light. The devil chi on the bone spear overflowed as he pounced on Ao Go. Ao Go was stunned at first, then he burst into laughter. He opened his mouth, and seemingly endless emerald dragon chi gushed out. He said, You really don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. How dare you use the devil race's cultivation method in my dragon palace? Don't tell me you don't know? The dragon chi of my dragon race is brighter than the righteous chi of Confucian cultivators? And the devil chi's nemesis? Wen Chu didn't know why Xiaohua wanted him to deal with the Dragon King of the South Sea, Ao Go, but in his eyes, the Dragon Kings of the 4 Seas were the same. Seeing the celestial being move, he also raised his hand and waved. A sword light soared into the sky. His figure stepped on a 7-colored cloud and flew toward Ao Go. Wen Chu shouted, I, Wen Chu, am here to fight under orders. Wen Chu? Seeing Wen Chu's extremely pure genuine chi of Confucian cultivators, and the sword light of martial cultivators, Ao Go was a little puzzled. However, he only pondered for a moment. A dragon claw stretched out toward Wen Chu, and a light shadow of dozens of miles in size appeared. The light shadow crossed the sky and formed a substantial yellow dragon claw, sealing the space around Wen Chu. Ao Go's dragon tail swayed under the sea and quietly smashed toward Wen Chu's back. Seeing that Xiaohua and the others had opponents, Feng Wu looked at Ao Hong, the Dragon King of the West Sea, whose body was surging with flames. He couldn't help but laugh. He finally understood Xiaohua's plan. Feng Wu spread his wings, and the power of the 7 stars and the moon surged around him. An indescribable primitive aura was activated. Feng Wu raised his head and let out a long cry. Little Loach, let Grandpa teach you a lesson. I'll let you know that it's not easy to be the Dragon King of the West Sea. Feng Wu's words made Ao Hong so angry that his nose was crooked. He really wanted to swallow Feng Wu in one gulp, but when he saw the power of the stars and moon coiling around Feng Wu's body, the wind and lightning between its wings, and the numerous illusory images that appeared as its claws descended, his heart couldn't help but be shocked, and a bad feeling arose from the bottom of his heart. He didn't dare to be negligent in the slightest. He also raised his head and let out a dragon's roar. The space shook, and the west was immediately dyed in flames. Even the surface of the sea had turned into a sea of fire. Pillars of fire shot up into the sky and attacked Feng Wu's body. As the phoenix parasol flapped its wings, the power of the stars and moon transformed into 7 illusory figures that descended like thunder. Cracks immediately appeared in the space that the dragon kings of the 4 seas had sealed. Not only did the illusory figure destroy the seal, but it also extinguished the fire pillars. When the thousands of fire pillars turned into fireflies, the illusory figure's momentum did not decrease as it slammed into the surface of the sea. Boom! There was no wind or waves on the surface of the sea. Instead, thin cracks appeared and rapidly spread in all directions. Damn it! Ao Qian was enraged. With a furious roar, a crimson pillar of fire shot out from his dragon mouth. Crimson threads that looked like hair grew from his dragon horns and entered the pillar of fire. Wherever the pillar of fire went, the sealed space melted. Drops of dark green liquid dripped down. And within the liquid, there seemed to be the sorrowful cries of 10,000 dragons. Feng Wu was not afraid at all. She opened her mouth as well. Wu Wu, a waterfall of innate heavy water rushed towards the crimson fire pillar. Feng Wu's phoenix claws still crossed the space and grabbed at Ao Hong's chest. Boom, boom, boom. Water and fire had always been mortal enemies. Although Ao Hong and Feng Wu were the last to attack, they did the least probing. The explosion of water and fire was especially violent. Ao Hong's fire pillar seemed to be no match for the innate true water, but the innate true fire crystals bursting out from his dragon horns were a few times stronger than the innate heavy water. The tremendous explosion generated an unimaginable force that tore apart the space within a few thousand miles. Countless dragon carvings rushed in from the countless cracks in the void. While the dragon carvings repaired the cracks in the void, they also fell into the ocean beneath the void. Amidst the sound of water and fire, Feng Wu's phoenix claws fell again and collided with Ao Hong's dragon claws. Zzzt. First, there was a loud boom. Ao Hong's dragon claw actually dimmed. Feng Wu's phoenix claw suddenly solidified and broke Ao Hong's dragon claw in an instant. How is this possible? Ao Hong turned pale with fright. A trace of panic flashed through his dragon eyes as he looked at Feng Wu in disbelief. He really didn't understand when there was another demon in the 1,000 demons sacred realm who could injure him. However, Ao Hong's panic only lasted for a moment. Peng Ao Hong's dragon tail had already reached out from the void and landed solidly on Feng Wu's back. Ao Hong's panic turned into mockery. The brilliance on his dragon claws shone brightly again. Ao Qian shouted, "You are indeed very strong. However, you still fell into this king's trap. Within this 4 seas grand formation, this king is omnipotent." Jie Feng Wu seemed to be in pain. His body was tumbling in midair, and he had no time to care about Ao Hong's mockery. "Ha ha ha, go to hell." Ao Hong laughed maniacally. The dragon crown on his dragon head flashed, and a light shadow appeared. The dragon horn emitted a strange fluctuation, and the light shadow transformed into a real dragon head that pounced on Feng Wu's tumbling body. However, before the dragon head could land on Feng Wu's body, Feng Wu, who was in a sorry state, suddenly waved her left wing. Several beams of starlight shot out and shattered the dragon head. At the same time, her right wing stretched out again with lightning speed, and actually transformed into a huge fist that smashed onto Ao Hong's dragon head. Ao Hong was stunned. This time he really shook his head in disbelief and looked at Feng Wu's back. He really could not believe that Feng Wu was unharmed after being hit by his dragon tail. However, to his disappointment, 7 layers of starlight and moon power appeared on Feng Wu's back. It turned into a net under the feathers and protected Feng Wu firmly. How can there be so much starlight and moon power in the 4 seas formation? Ao Hong was puzzled. He opened his mouth again and was about to activate the obscure dragon language when he suddenly became alert. His dragon tail hurriedly swayed, and his dragon body hurriedly dodged. Rip Feng Wu's claws strangely appeared on Ao Hong's abdomen. It scratched the dragon scales on his abdomen and revealed a wound that was dozens of feet long. Ao Hong screamed and was shocked. Ao Qian, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go all looked at Ao Hong in surprise. They also did not expect that Ao Hong would be injured in just a short time. What shocked them even more was that Ao Hong screamed and raised his dragon claws. Swoosh! He grabbed Feng Wu's claws. Boom! A huge roar sounded again. Ao Hong moved his dragon body and pounced on Feng Wu. His dragon head opened his mouth and bit at Feng Wu's neck. Without waiting for Ao Hong to fall, Feng Wu's right wing swung again. Feng Wu's dragon head was smashed into nothingness. This dragon head was actually Ao Hong's feint. Feng Wu then looked at Feng Wu. Jie with a long cry. The power of the stars and moon spewed out from her beak and landed on a nearby space. Boom! The void was torn apart by the power of the stars and moon. Ao Qian's dragon head was exposed awkwardly and the power of the stars and moon accurately hit Ao Hong's dragon horn. Ao Hong let out a sorrowful cry as his vision blurred. At this moment, Feng Wu's beak suddenly pecked at Ao Hong's forehead, and a faint strand of dragon essence was actually swallowed by Feng Wu. Damn it! Ao Hong roared in pain and twisted his dragon body. A great force came from the space and Feng Wu's claws loosened. Ao Hong took advantage of this and disappeared strangely from Feng Wu's sight. Ao Go saw the celestial rushing over with the bone dragon demonic spear, and could not help laughing. The righteous chi of a Confucian cultivator was the nemesis of demonic chi. Although dragon chi was not the destiny of a Confucian cultivator, the destiny of the human race was that of a dragon. Therefore, dragon chi was also the nemesis of demonic chi. Ao Go felt that he had gained a great advantage. He opened his mouth and countless pure emerald dragon chi roared and pounced on the celestial. Sure enough, the demonic chi rushing out of the bone dragon demonic spear was destroyed by these small dragons. The demonic light of the spear was somewhat dim. Ha ha! Ao Go laughed again. The emerald green on his dragon body shone brightly, covering nearly 1,000 miles. Almost countless dragon patterns rushed out from the space. Above the sea, huge vines flashed with multicolored light and wrapped around the celestial. Seeing Ao Go's attack, the celestial was helpless. He was different from Xiaohua's other doppelgangers. The celestial was formed from Xiaohua's bones, and was the doppelganger that cultivated the light escape. This doppelganger had no special ability except for tempering his origin energy, and cultivating various bone tempering techniques. Moreover, because the celestial was born with the body of a primitive celestial, not to mention the 3 continents and Dawn Rain continent, even the ruins and primitive continent did not have a suitable ability for him to cultivate. Therefore, usually, the celestial would go into battle bare-chested except for brandishing his spear and staff. Now that the wishful staff was too light, it was not suitable for the celestial to use. The celestial had no choice but to fall into an awkward situation. Previously, in the 7-star Great Array, he did not play a special role. However, the celestial had another ability that others did not have, and that was the celestial bone. Now no one could control the celestial bone except the celestial. If Xiaohua used the bone now, not to mention 1 Ao Go, even 2 Ao Go would be defeated by the celestial. However, the celestial bone was not the celestial's own bone. When the celestial activated the bone, he would inevitably be affected by the terrifying consciousness. For safety reasons, Xiaohua could only let the celestial temporarily use the bone dragon demonic spear to fight the enemy. However, this demonic spear was difficult for the celestial. After all, the celestial did not cultivate any demonic arts, and could not activate the demonic flames of the demonic spear. He could only use the demonic spear as an ordinary demonic tool. Ao Go's dragon chi fell. Seeing that many of the demons on the demonic spear were killed by the dragon chi, the celestial could not do anything. Chapter 43:18. Roar! The celestial let out a roar and his arms shook. The bone spear let out a thunderous roar, and the bone dragon floated up from the spear. Although there were no fluctuations or dragon tattoos on the dragon's horn, the natural dragons might still spread out. Especially the sharpness of the dragon's horns, they instantly pierced through the emerald green dragon chi. An indescribable feeling of fear stabbed into Ao Go's dragon body, like an invisible flying sword. Damn it! Feeling this fear and the destructive dragon's might from the bone spear, Ao Go cursed angrily. He didn't dare to face the bone spear head-on. His dragon body flickered, and he immediately moved hundreds of miles away, dodging the bone spear. The celestial didn't chase after him. The bone spear danced in his hand. Shwa shwa shwa! The bone spear danced in the air. Numerous black dragon heads appeared in the air. These dragon heads were formed from tiny demon heads. The dragon heads howled as they pounced on the dragon patterns and dragon chi in the air. They even rushed out of the sea's surface. Boom. It was very strange. When the dragon chi and dragon veins came in contact with the devil chi of the bone spear, they immediately turned gray, and were swallowed by the devil head of the bone spear. As for the rot tan, it easily collapsed under the attack of the bone spear, and was destroyed by it. Ha ha ha! At this time, the Celestial finally understood Xiaohua's arrangement. The embarrassment in his heart disappeared, and he also laughed. The bone spear in his hand was like a shadow as it casually stabbed at the space sealed by Ao Go. Damn it! Ao Go didn't know how many times he cursed in his heart. He could see the Celestial's weakness, but the bone spear in the Celestial's hand was not only sharp, but it was also refined from a dragon corpse that was much higher in grade than him. Although the Celestial didn't know how to control the dragon corpse, the innate dragon's might was enough to completely suppress Ao Go. Ao Go raised his hand, and a golden light flashed through the sky. Within the golden light, the same spear shadow shot through the sky like lightning towards the Celestial. Seeing Ao Go take out his golden spear, the Deva let out an excited roar in midair. He no longer cared about the draconic aura, and instead began to fight Ao Go. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Ao Go suddenly raised his hand, and lifted the long spear into the air. The dragon's mouth spat out a dragon breath, and the whole spear turned into a dragon. Not only that, but Ao Go's dragon horn also released thousands of waves. A dragon shadow appeared from the waves and fell into the long spear. Roar the dragon image's dragon might flourished, almost suppressing the power of the bone spear. It streaked across the sky like lightning, pouncing towards the Celestial's forehead. Another spell. The Celestial was furious. He hurriedly raised his bone spear to block. However, under the power of the dragon spear, the demonic aura of the bone spear was almost completely dissipated. It seemed that the bone spear couldn't resist at all. Even the dragon horn on the bone spear dimmed. Damn it, I don't believe it. The celestial being was fighting fiercely, and was unwilling to retreat. He raised his head and roared. At this time, his heart suddenly moved again because he had activated the celestial being White Bones. Although he had never cultivated the great desolate divine ability, he still had the feeling of the celestial being White Bones activating the great desolate chi. Seeing that the golden spear was about to pierce his forehead, he also shook his arms and opened his mouth to spit out a brilliance. Unfortunately, although the celestial opened his mouth, no light spurted out. However, what surprised the celestial was that the primitive chi in his arms surged into the bone spear, which was more powerful than any true chi. The bone spear immediately came to life after receiving the primitive chi. Roar the horse dragon roar revealed the majesty of the bone dragon when it was alive. And with the dragon's roar, the demonic aura on the bone spear suddenly flourished. The demonic fire and demonic flame were even more rampant than when the devil spirit Xiaohua and Xiaohua's body were activated before, crazily rolling towards the dragon image's ferocious golden spear. Haha, I understand now. The celestial shouted. The so-called 10,000 arts return to the origin is like this. Whether it's time, true chi, true essence, noble chi, or even devil chi, in the end they will all return to the primitive world. I am the last day's venerable. Of course, Aogo didn't understand what the celestial was saying, but when he saw how powerful the devil spear was, how the devil flame flickered and the devil head roared and swallowed the dragon chi and dragon might on the golden spear, he didn't dare to be careless. He braced himself and used his divine ability to fight the celestial. Putting aside the fact that the celestial being and Aogo were evenly matched, when Chu was fighting against Aogo, Aogo's dragon claw slammed down like a mountain, creating a gust of wind that covered 1,000 miles. When Chu smiled faintly and threw the sword in his hand, buzz, 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 the sword buzzed and instantly split into 9 flying swords. Each flying sword had a different sword radiance, and each sword radiated a different sword intent. These sword intents were imbued with a mighty aura, and they shot toward the dragon claw faster than meteors. Swoosh, 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 a faint chill like the autumn rain emerged from the seal. Ao Tsongda's dragon claws were sliced off by the sword light in the autumn. The battle intent that was suppressing Wen Chu was also shattered by the ferocious power of the 9 stars transit. Which cultivation family of the hidden immortal continent do you belong to? Wuxia? Aotsongshi was surprised and asked tentatively, how come this king has never heard of it? I was born from the noble spirit, and my real name is Wuxia. How can the human clan of the hidden immortal continent tolerate my benevolence? Wuxia replied with a faint smile. How could Ao Concrete believe Wuxia's words? He narrowed his eyes and said, the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is now favored by the immortal emperor. You are a Confucian cultivator, so if you give up today and persuade Reverend Yun to reconcile with the Dragon Palace, I can recommend you to the immortal palace. With your cultivation base, you are more than qualified to be an immortal official. When the time comes, you will be welcomed by the Heaven Gate. How can a lackey be free and unfettered like himself? Wuxia's tone was still indifferent. Plucking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence, leisurely looking at the southern mountain, not suffering for the mortal world, and not envying the power of the immortal emperor. While speaking, Wuxia opened his mouth again. A mouthful of five-colored energy sprayed out, transforming into a winter chrysanthemum, and falling on the surface of the ocean. Boom! Aotsongshi's sneaky dragon tail suddenly lashed out from the void, hitting right on the winter chrysanthemum. Amidst a loud boom, the five-colored energy was annihilated, and the dragon tail was forced back. How can a filthy dragon like you understand what I'm thinking? Wuxia sighed lightly, as if he was not stained by the smoke and dust. He looked at Aotsongshi with a pitiful look, which was very similar to that of Buddha Bodhi. Aotsongshi was a bit embarrassed, but he instantly tore apart his gentleness. He simply roared, and his dragon body transformed into the image of heaven and earth. His entire voice resounded in Wuxia's ears. It was very ferocious. I don't care if I'm one saint or one star, I don't care if you're an immortal official or an elder of a clan. Anyone who enters my Four Seas Grand Formation is an ant. Since you don't listen to my kind words, then I'll let you have a taste of my power. While speaking, Aotsongshi's mouth chanted a strange heavenly dragon technique. The entire horizon began to surge with a dense dragon aura. Countless primordial energies of heaven and earth gathered from an unknown place. Numerous mountains, layers of earth, and even stars appeared in the light of this primordial energy. The power of the mountains, the gravity of the earth, and the majesty and vastness of the stars all rushed towards Wuxia amidst this strange phenomenon. Seeing such a celestial phenomenon, as if the blue dome of heaven was about to heavily press down, Wuxia did not panic. He slightly smiled, raised his hand and patted his head. The five-colored energy rushed out, turning into a light that first protected him. Then he opened his mouth and chanted, building a hut in the mortal realm, without the noise of carriages and horses. What can a gentleman do? His heart is far from his own. Picking chrysanthemums under the eastern fence, leisurely looking at the southern mountain. The mountain's aura is fine in the sun and the evening, the birds return to each other. There is true meaning in this, but I've forgotten to explain it. As Wuxia's voice fell, large inscriptions appeared one after another. Each inscription carried a kind of arrogance, and each inscription carried a sense of loneliness. And when these inscriptions formed a sentence in the air, boom, 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 a subtle noble spirit rushed out from the void. Aotsongshi sneered. The heavenly draconic technique didn't stop. After all, everything was sealed within the Four Seas array. The void was filled with dragon marks, and the mighty chi pillar couldn't break through. Just as Aotsongshi sneered, buzz, buzz, Wuxia's body began to vibrate. The space within 1,000 miles began to surge like boiling water. Waves of noble spirit gushed out from Wuxia's body. Not only did it cover 1,000 miles of space, but it also surged towards the Four Seas Grand Formation. Wuxia, you really are a Wuxia. Aotsongshi was surprised. The so-called Wuxia he spoke of before was just flattering Wuxia. He did not think that a Wuxia would appear among the Confucian cultivators of the three continents. As the master of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, he would not be unaware of it. The noble spirit continued to appear, and the arrogant words began to shine with a light. Although there weren't many words, they were like the backbone of the human race, supporting the space within thousands of miles. The majestic southern mountain and the chrysanthemums fluttering in the wind under the southern mountain blocked the so-called mountains, the earth, and the stars from appearing indifferent. What is indifference? If there is no power in this world, no disputes, how can there be any excitement? Aotsongshi was also proficient in the essence of Confucian cultivation. Seeing Wen Chu in such a state, he sneered and once again chanted the heavenly dragon technique with a tight rhythm. Roar, roar, roar. The stars, earth, and mountains that were blocked by the noble spirit changed again, turning into yellow dragons that fell like rain. In just a moment, the indifferent noble spirit was washed to a dangerous level. Haha, at this point, how could Wen Chu not know Xiaohua's arrangement? Although his armor inscription was not as good as Daoist Witch's green seal inscription, his strength was recognized by Wen Chu after all, surpassing Daoist Witch. Using the Confucian armor inscription to deal with the Dragon Clan's heavenly dragon technique was complementary. Wen Chu laughed and proudly chanted, "Lying in a lonely village, I do not mourn for myself, I still think of guarding the wheel platform for the country. Lying in bed at night, listening to the wind and rain, I dream of iron horses and ice rivers." Chapter 43:19. As soon as Wen Chu finished speaking, even more inscriptions rushed into the air. At this moment, the space to the left of Wen Chu was filled with a grand aura. This space had already become independent of the Four Seas formation. As soon as the inscriptions came out, the sound of wind and rain came out, and the ice began to invade the Four Seas' greater ray, blowing toward Aotsongshi. At the same time, under the light of the inscriptions on the armor, more noble spirit turned into armored warriors riding on horses. These warriors held long spears in their hands, and the realm of golden spears and armored horses was born instantly. Teams of armored warriors stepped on the ice river and rushed into the air. The place where the long spears fell was exactly the same as the flood dragons. The sound of horses and dragons roaring was endless. Cao Tsongshi saw this and unconsciously took a breath of cold air again. And Wen Chu narrowed his eyes, watching the Aoran Qi and Dragon Qi compete, and a kind of pride was born from the bottom of his heart. Xiaohua had been refining the innate qi in his chest since he was young, and even practiced this innate qi to the extreme of the 18th layer. Later on, Xiaohua's middle dantian was sealed. This true qi had been brewing inside his middle dantian. When the seal was broken, Xiaohua focused his true qi on Confucian cultivation. Therefore, Xiaohua's realm of Confucian cultivation was the highest. However, the original meaning of Confucian cultivation was not to fight, to kill, and not to show off, but to cultivate the innate vitality. After Xiaohua comprehended this essence, he rarely used the means of Confucian cultivation to fight against the enemy. Of course, the means of Confucian cultivation were not as fierce as the means of Taoism. Wen Chu also rarely used the Aoran Qi, and mostly used the Jiuzhou cauldron and the innate qi. Now Wen Chu tried to use the insignificant inscriptions to deal with the Dragon Clan's heavenly dragon technique, and it was actually on par with the Dragon Clan, which really made Wen Chu feel gratified. Xiaohua's 4 doppelgangers showed off their power and fought against the 3 Sea Dragon Kings. How could Xiaohua be worse than them? Xiaohua activated his golden body, and his Dharma form was born. With a wave of his arms, he cracked the restriction of the 4 Seas formation. Ao Qian watched as Xiaohua activated his golden body, and the silver-white spear floating in the sky seemed to be breathing. Then he sneered and said, "You didn't take the Dragon Clan's path to heaven, but you didn't take the narrow door of the human clan. Today, I will teach you a lesson on behalf of my dragon ancestor, you traitor." After he finished speaking, the long spear that soared into the sky was like a mountain flood, covering the sky and the earth as it fell, covering the space where Xiaohua was. The sharpness of that spear had already pierced through the space before it even landed. Even the brilliance of Xiaohua's golden body had become riddled with holes. Haha! Xiaohua smiled faintly. He knew that in this space, the divine abilities of the Dragon Kings of the 4 Seas were magnified greatly, especially some of the Dharmas. Therefore, Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry. He urged his magic power, and the power of his domain also rushed out like a mountain torrent. First, it covered nearly 1,000 miles around him, and then he grabbed with both hands. Kacho amidst the sound of thunder, a myriad of lightning waves rushed out even more ferociously than the spears. In just a few breaths of time, the silver spears formed from Dragon Qi were scattered. That violent lightning was like the anger in Xiaohua's heart. He had been framed for no reason at all. Every strand of lightning destroyed the draconic qi, but at the same time, it also tore apart the seal of the Four Seas Great Array. Seeing the large area of draconic qi being annihilated in an instant, Ao Qian couldn't help but be shocked again. On the contrary, Xiaohua's expression didn't change at all as he watched the draconic qi being annihilated. He understood in his heart that although the dragon kings of the four seas were stronger than the four consecrators of the Southern Sea Dragon Palace, and this Four Seas Great Array was fiercer than the Seven Stars Great Array, the Seven Stars Great Array was, after all, strengthened by generations of Southern Sea Dragon Palace masters. The power inside would definitely surpass this hastily formed Four Seas Great Array. Moreover, after these years of fighting, Xiaohua understood even more clearly that fighting wasn't about the process, but about the outcome. No matter how fancy a magic technique was, in the end, it was still about power. Back then, Xiaohua used the divine power in his arms to make up for his lack of magic power. Later, the growth of his divine power couldn't catch up with the growth of his magic power, so he had no choice but to pursue the power of his magic power. Now that he had already controlled the power of lightning, lightning naturally represented the punishment of heaven and earth. Even the immortal palace had to be afraid of it. Therefore, Xiaohua simply didn't use any other magic techniques. He only used simple and crude lightning to destroy Ao Qian's draconic qi. However, when the draconic qi was completely annihilated, a bright moon rose from the sea behind Xiaohua. The bright moonlight ignored the distance between them and appeared on Xiaohua's back in the blink of an eye. In the moonlight, a several zhang large pearl was revealed. Inside the pearl, there seemed to be an underwater world. The deep blue sea water filled the entire pearl. Countless sea race members swam freely in this sea water. Some corals and reefs also cast shadows on them. When the moonlight fell on Xiaohua's back, the enormous power of a minor thousand worlds suppressed Xiaohua to the point that he almost couldn't breathe, especially the brilliance on the pearl. In the Four Seas Great Array, it gave birth to the shape of a flood dragon and crazily tore at the brilliance on Xiaohua's golden body. Damn it! Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He waved his hand and used the heaven and earth in the sleeve technique. In an instant, it enveloped the pearl and Xiaohua's consciousness was about to take the pearl away. However, when Xiaohua's consciousness fell, the pearl spun and released boundless vitality. Its brilliance rushed out like a bright moon and pierced Xiaohua's mind like a sharp sword. How could Xiaohua take this treasure? Moreover, the pearl's impact was so great that Xiaohua's heaven and earth in the sleeve technique was actually shattered by it. Xiaohua coldly snorted and quickly retreated. He stretched out his hand again. He didn't believe that a Mahayana cultivator couldn't take this pearl. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was still wrong. Although Xiaohua's hand had sealed the space within 100 miles, the power of the pearl to kill him had not decreased in the slightest. When it broke through the seal, it even tore the space apart. Not to mention Xiaohua trying to collect the pearl, he didn't even know if his hand would be fine after touching the pearl. What kind of treasure is this? Xiaohua was even more shocked. He waved his hand and sent out the Overturn the Sea seal. The Overturn the Sea seal's shadow crazily fell, barely stopping the pearl's momentum for the time being. Roar, however, just as the pearl stopped in the air for a moment, a dragon's roar came from the pearl again. The pearl's brilliance turned into a flood dragon again. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced at the seal. Not only did it break through the layers of shadow, but it also made the light of the coiling dragon below the seal dim. So arrogant? Xiaohua was shocked. His eyes lit up again. He hurriedly rubbed his hands and countless bolts of lightning rushed towards the pearl. The dragon formed by the pearl seemed to understand Xiaohua's thoughts and charged into the void. Although the void was sealed by Xiaohua, a crack appeared where the light landed. When the dragon formed by the pearl charged into the spatial crack, it suddenly turned its head. The dragon had a mocking expression on its face. Ao Qian, you're just courting death. Xiaohua was furious. He raised his hand and waved it. An inconspicuous yellow light flew out from his hand, and when it landed in the air, it was an inconspicuous copper coin. Huh? Ao Qian's mocking face became even more hysterical. The pearl, which was supposed to fall into the spatial rift, paused for a brief moment, as if he was showing off and showing off. His wild laughter echoed throughout the entire East Sea, even stirring up waves on the surface of the ocean. Reverend Yun, if you have no money, feel free to come to my East Sea Dragon Palace. I can even give you any ocean crystal you want, not to mention how precious time is. Why should I give you a copper coin? This copper coin was naturally the copper coin of Treasurefall that Xiaohua had bestowed upon Lu Yi. Xiaohua had originally not planned to use it, but Ao Qian had truly made him angry. His mind entered the space and forcefully took out the copper coin of Treasurefall from Lu Yi's Qiankuan bag. When the copper coin of Treasurefall was an extraordinary prehistoric treasure, it did not cause any ripples when it first appeared. But when it came close to the pearl, a powerful ripple immediately emanated from it and enveloped the pearl. After that, the dragon aura on the pearl completely disappeared, and its light was extinguished as well. It quickly transformed into a fist-sized ocean pearl and fell from the crack in space. Ah! Ao Qian's mocking expression froze on his face as he cried out in surprise. Embarrassment filled his eyes as he said, Reverend Yun, when the ocean pearl fell, the copper coin of Treasurefall immediately shone with a yellow light, like the tongue of a golden toad. It landed on the ocean pearl. Following the light, the ocean pearl flew to the side of the coin. After that, Xiaohua raised his hand and was about to take the coin. Roar! Ao Qian let out a furious roar. Reverend Yun, how dare you take my Four Seas pearl? With Ao Qian's angry roar, Ao Qian's dragon body appeared in the sky. His dragon aura soared into the sky and flew toward Xiaohua. His silver-white dragon horn was filled with murderous fluctuations, causing the entire space to become chaotic. What was special was that the space around the copper coin of Treasurefall was also shining with a dazzling silver-white light. Obviously, Ao Qian was going to snatch the Four Seas pearl. Boom! Xiaohua waved his sleeve, causing the space within 100 miles to tremble. All the spatial anomalies were suppressed. He raised his eyes and gave Ao Qian a contemptuous look. Then he performed the Qiankuan in the sleeve technique again, and easily took the Four Seas pearl and the copper coin of Treasurefall. Only then did he say coldly, not only will I take your Four Seas pearl, but I'll also take your life. As soon as his voice fell, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out the wishful steel staff. Buzz! The wishful steel staff buzzed and turned into a sky-high staff that crossed the sky and hit Ao Qian's dragon body. Unfortunately, although the wishful steel staff streaked across the sky and broke the space of the Four Seas array, it still could not stop Ao Qian's dragon aura. A loud roar burst out, but it still could not stop Ao Qian. The wishful steel staff was bounced back by Ao Qian's attack. The wishful steel staff of 5 elements. No, this is the sky-leveling staff. Ao Qian was also slightly surprised. He did not expect Xiaohua's inconspicuous weapon to be so powerful. A moment later, Ao Qian came to his senses and cried out, I finally understand why you came to the South Sea Dragon Palace. Chapter 43:20. Seeing that the wishful steel staff had been knocked back, Xiaohua did not panic. After putting away the wishful steel staff, he raised his hand and patted the top of his head. Kacha! The sound of thunder sounded again. The 9 heavens divine thunder, the 5 qi thunder, the yin thunder of 3 corpses, and the xianming thunder rushed out at the same time, turning into a big 4-colored hand above Xiaohua's head. Above this big hand, the different thunderbolts gave birth to strange fluctuations. These fluctuations were sometimes annihilated and sometimes reborn. Moreover, when the big hand moved in the sky, there were countless spatial anomalies from time to time, either infinite vitality or sudden appearance of death. The unspeakable way of life and death actually showed a trace of power in this big hand. Although it was only a trace of power, Ao Qian's dragon aura was wiped out wherever the huge hand fell. The dragon's power was like the lament of an old woman in the face of death, resentful and powerless. Boom! The towering dragon aura was crushed into powder. Even Ao Qian's dragon body was imprisoned by the huge hand, and he could not easily break free from it even though he was waving his dragon tail. Ao Qian turned pale with fright. Suddenly he swept his dragon tail toward the sea. The seawater, which was several times larger than a mountain, flew up with his dragon tail and smashed toward Xiaohua's huge hand. Xiaohua faintly smiled. He raised his hand and grabbed at the waves. Boom! All of the waves were grabbed and turned into pure sea crystals. These sea crystals instantly exploded, but it was also at this moment that Ao Qian's figure flickered and his afterimages appeared one after another. He actually managed to escape from Xiaohua's hand. At this moment, a scream came from where Ao Qian was. Ao Qian, who had just escaped, was startled and hurriedly looked in that direction. He saw dragon blood flowing out of Ao Hong's abdomen, and Feng Wu proudly flapping his wings. The pride of a victor was self-evident. Damn it! Ao Qian cursed angrily. His ferocious dragon head suddenly turned and roared at Xiaohua. Reverend Yin, don't think that you and your friend have a very high cultivation base. The Four Seas formation of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas is definitely not something you can resist. The reason I haven't activated the real Four Seas formation is to let you know the difficulty and retreat, so that you can cooperate with me. And you don't understand this king's painstaking efforts. You actually tried to kill me, the Dragon King of the Four Seas. Since that's the case, don't blame this king for not giving face to the dragon ancestor and giving you a way out. Actually, Xiaohua was also a little surprised in his heart. This Four Seas great array looked very powerful. All of the space was sealed by the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. Even if a 9th grade essence energy cultivator fell in, they would still be restrained by the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas. If he didn't have any special abilities, it would be very difficult for him to gain the upper hand. However, in less than 5 minutes, when Chu had clearly gained the upper hand, the three of them were on par with the 3 Sea Dragon Kings. They even vaguely had the upper hand. The Four Seas Grand Array was not as powerful as Ao Qian had described. Of course, Xiaohua also had some hope in his heart. He thought that the Four Seas Grand Array was only at this level. After all, the 4 of them were 9th grade essence energy cultivators. On the hidden immortal continent, it was rare for 4 9th grade essence energy cultivators to work together to break the Four Seas Grand Array. Hearing Ao Qian's angry threat, Xiaohua was shocked. He immediately ordered Feng Wu, "Feng Wu, don't hesitate. Quickly kill the Dragon King of the West Sea." "Yes," Feng Wu replied in her heart. Her beak immediately pecked at Ao Hong's forehead. Ao Hong couldn't dodge in time. Part of the dragon essence was swallowed by Feng Wu. How could Ao Hong dare to hesitate? He screamed and immediately disappeared into the void. Feng Wu flapped her wings. Several moonlight pillars shot into the void. However, under the void, other than the dragon patterns, Ao Hong's figure was nowhere to be seen. Ao seeing Ao Hong escape, Ao Qian, Ao Concrete, and Ao Go all raised their heads and roared. The 3 Dragon Kings also disappeared into the void. Fellow Taoists, be careful. Seeing the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas escape at the same time, Xiaohua didn't dare to force them. He shouted, "The Dragon Kings of the Four Seas want to activate the real Four Seas Grand Array," not waiting for Xiaohua's voice to land. Boom 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 boom, 4 thunderous sounds, like the roars of 10,000 dragons, came from all directions of the sea surface. Then, 4 golden dragons suddenly rushed out from the source of these sounds, skyrocketing for 90,000 miles, piercing straight into the blue dome of heaven. 4 wills that resembled heaven and earth emerged from the dragon avatar, and surged towards the surface of the sea from all 4 directions. Under the supreme wills, not a single ripple appeared on the surface of the sea. Even the dragon runes that were wreaking havoc earlier had stopped moving in the void. Xiaohua and the other 3 stood in the air. The will instantly annihilated them. Within his will, an irresistible feeling, a feeling that made people bend their knees, a feeling that made people prostrate themselves before him, was born. This is Xiaohua was aghast. This feeling was very familiar to him. Back then, when he fought against the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State in the Black Wind Mountain Range, the state preceptor Lung Qingge used the 5-dragon jade seal to suppress Xiaohua. This feeling came from the 5-dragon jade seal. Moreover, when Xiaohua went to the Jade Pavilion meeting to seize the lot of the state preceptor, he also met the monarch of the state preceptor. The mountain and river seal wanted to suppress Xiaohua, and the same feeling came from the mountain and river seal. However, compared to the 4 wills in front of him, those 2 feelings were just the light of a firefly. The 4 wills in front of him were so terrifying and so vast. In the will, Xiaohua, Wenchu, and Fengwu's figures shrank rapidly. They were like ants in the world, unable to compete with the will of the world. On the contrary, the celestial being with the lowest cultivation level looked at this overwhelming aura in a daze. He didn't know what was going on. Rai Xiaohua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly took out the mountain and river seal. However, just as the mountain and river seal flew out of the space, it immediately let out a mournful cry. Its brilliance disappeared, and it fell from the air. It couldn't even fly up. Fellow Taoist Xiaohua put away the mountain and river seal and exclaimed, "I have some methods to resist, but I don't want to use them now. What about you? If you can't resist, I will ask fellow Taoist Ji to come out." Unexpectedly, although Wen Chu's figure was forced to shrink, the corners of his mouth revealed a slight smile. He replied, "Don't worry, we haven't reached the end of the line yet. If we ask fellow Taoist Ji to come out now, wouldn't we lose face?" "Is that so?" Xiaohua was slightly surprised. He looked at Wen Chu and Fengwu in disbelief and asked curiously, "You actually have a magical ability that I don't know?" "We're nothing." Wen Chu chuckled. "Look at fellow Taoist Heavenly Tao. He doesn't seem to have sensed this incomparably powerful intent at all. With him here, what do we have to be afraid of?" "All right." Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked in the direction where Ao Qian disappeared. Since his 3 clones still had methods that they hadn't revealed yet, he naturally wanted to see just how powerful the true 4C's formation was. Buzz, 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 buzz. The entire space collapsed rapidly, and the dragon statues that were originally soaring into the sky fell down with a loud rumble. At the place where the dragon statues fell, 4 golden dragon thrones slowly rose from the sea surface of the 4C's great array. The golden light was more dazzling than the sun, and the dragon thrones were more dazzling than the rising sun. On the dragon thrones, the dragon kings of the 4C's sat calmly with dragon crowns on their heads and dragon robes on their bodies. Incomparably majestic auras that were filled with the authority of heaven and earth seeped out from their scales, dragon horns, dragon whiskers, and other parts. This aura surged from all directions and firmly suppressed Xiaohua and the others. Dragon thrones. Dragon thrones. Dragon thrones. Xiaohua struggled to straighten his back and shouted unyieldingly, "I understand now. These 4 dragon thrones that are filled with the intent of the dragon clan are the foundation of the 4C's formation that you set up. At the same time, they are where the authority of the 4C's formation lies." "That's right." Ao Qian coiled on the dragon thrones. The golden light from the dragon crown merged with the dragon thrones, and his voice was like that of a god. It actually had the power to make people submit without hesitation. "All under the 4C's are my water, and all the clans of the 4C's are my people. Not to mention that you're a member of the dragon clan. Even if you're not, you'll still have to crawl before the dragon thrones. Taoist men, this is your last chance. If you still don't submit, I'll suppress you on behalf of the dragon clan." "I understand." Xiaohua sighed. "Ao Jia is truly cunning. How is the title of Dragon Master false? It can't be any more real. I originally didn't plan to use this dragon crown anymore, but you're forcing me. I can only choose to resist." Ha ha ha. Ao Qian laughed loudly. Confucian cultivators have said that humans are the 5 elements: heaven, earth, king, family, and teacher. You, a dragon master, can only be ranked at the bottom. How can you contend against the will of heaven and earth of this king? Sai Xiaohua took out the dragon crown. Sure enough, when the dragon crown rushed out, its elegant aura immediately blocked most of that irresistible will. Xiaohua wore the dragon crown and sighed. "You're only the king of the dragon clan. How can you know the righteousness of the dragon clan? How can the will of heaven and earth be represented by you? Your dragon thrones are only imperial authority, and imperial authority is only the will of the monarch. It's your will as a king. It's far from being comparable to heaven and earth." At this point, Xiaohua came back to his senses and shook his head. This poor Taoist was wrong. This is not the real 4C's grand formation. The previous grand formation was the real 4C's grand formation. The current 4C's grand formation is only an improvement you obtained from the Immortal Palace's throne and the Immortal Emperor's authority after you joined the Immortal Palace. Unfortunately, Ao Qian didn't answer. He just smiled and asked, Taoist Min, it's useless to say more. Have you thought it through? Ha ha ha! Xiao Hua threw his head back and laughed loudly. In the midst of his laughter, he answered sonorously, even if you're the ruler of the dragon thrones, even if you're using imperial authority to force me, you're still not heaven and earth. You're still not justice. I am not afraid. Damn it. Damn it. Damn it. Ao Qian was furious. Since you want to die, then this king will fulfill your wish. Don't think that what Dragon Island gave you is a protective talisman. Chapter 43:21. With that, Ao Qian opened his mouth and spat out the dragon seal he obtained from the Immortal Palace. At the same time, Ao Tsong, Ao Go, and Ao Hong also opened their mouths. Identical dragon seals fell into the air and landed on the dragon throne. Swoosh! The dragon throne, which already represented the will of the dragon clan, gained a supreme imperial aura. The destiny of the human clan from the Immortal Palace made the will of the dragon clan even more powerful, and its will spread throughout the entire space. Boom! With a loud bang, Xiao Hua's dragon crown once again fell from the sky. Faced with this kind of heaven and earth order, Xiao Hua was helpless. He could only open his mouth. Pooh! Sword light rushed out, and his entire golden body flashed with sword light. His body transformed into a heart-shaped sword intent, and he chanted, "The wrath of the Son of Heaven, 1,000,000 corpses float, 1,000 miles of blood flow. The wrath of the commoner, 5 steps of blood flow, a world of mourning. Since I am unyielding, I will use my sword to travel 1,000 miles." Just as Xiao Hua was feeling helpless, the Celestial shouted, "Fellow Taoist, don't worry, I will help you." Following the Celestial's voice, he actually stepped onto a cloud and flew towards Xiao Hua with a demonic weapon. Damn it, this Celestial has a primitive body. At the beginning of the primitive era, there was no imperial power. This bastard is indomitable, completely ignoring the so-called imperial power and the will of the dragon clan. Seeing the Celestial ignore the Four Seas Great Formation, Xiao Hua bitterly smiled. He sighed in his heart and hurriedly ordered, "Fellow Celestial, you don't need to worry about me. Although I can't kill the Dragon King with my sword, I can still protect myself. You just need to kill Ao Go." "Oh." The Celestial stared blankly for a moment, then responded. He turned his head and urged the bone dragon spear to rush towards Ao Go, who was sitting on the dragon throne. Seeing that the Celestial was not afraid of the dragon throne, Ao Go's face turned bitter. He hurriedly patted the dragon throne, causing the surface of the Four Seas Great Formation to ripple as he prepared to meet the enemy. On the other side, Wen Chu smiled and said, "Fellow Cultivator, don't panic. Watch my methods." Following Wen Chu's voice, he clapped his hands. With a rumbling sound, the 5-colored genuine qi rushed out and turned into endless auspicious clouds in the air. In the south where Wen Chu was, on the dragon throne where the Dragon King of the South Sea Ao Tsongda sat, the entire sky was covered by endless auspicious clouds and multicolored light. Within the auspicious clouds and multicolored light, all kinds of auspicious dragons and phoenixes, abundant grains and picturesque territories were born. An indescribable aura shrouded the Dragon King of the South Sea. Not good. Ao Concrete seemed to have thought of something. He screamed and slapped the dragon seal with his hand. The imperial power of the Immortal Palace soared into the sky, trying to disperse the vision. Unfortunately, the aura didn't reach more than 10,000 feet. Wu! At the top of Wen Chu's head, another strange whistling sound was heard. The whistling sound was mixed with the sound of chanting and wind and rain. It was truly a rhythm of wind, rain, and reading that entered one's ears. This is Ao Tsongda's eyes were filled with fear. Sure enough, with this sound, thousands of scrolls flew out and condensed into a brilliant Wen Chu star. The majestic starlight above the literati star instantly enveloped the southern part of the Four Seas Formation. The dragon qi and imperial power that Ao Tsongha had activated met the starlight and the power of the saints in midair. Boom boom boom! Explosive sounds rang out one after another. The dragon image immediately collapsed and fell toward the dragon throne that Ao Tsongha was on. The starlight from the literati star swept past the dragon throne. Kacha kacha! Sounds of cracking suddenly rang out. Whether it was the dragon throne, the dragon seal, or even the dragon crown on Ao Tsongha's head, They were all unable to bear the heavy burden and cracked. Fellow Taoists, Wen Chu's methods are only so seeing Wen Chu use the Wen Chu star to fight. The Fengwu proudly smiled. She looked at Xiaohua and shouted, "Fellow Taoist, don't be anxious. I will also help you." As the phoenix parasol let out a cry, it flapped its wings. Boom, 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 boom. 7 powerful booms soared into the sky. 7 pillars of starlight shot into the clouds above the Four Seas Grand Array. These starlights were even more dazzling than the literate star. They even pierced 7 huge holes in the clouds. Ao Chu was injured by the Fengwu's attack, so when he saw the 7 pillars of starlight, he almost jumped up from his dragon throne. He looked at the Fengwu in disbelief and shouted at the pillars of starlight. Wang! When even more powerful explosions came from the pillars of starlight. To the north of the Fengwu, the entire space was shaking. Countless rays of light shot out from the Fengwu's back. And wherever the starlight went, space collapsed. The so-called true Four Seas Grand Formation that Ao Chu spoke of was actually torn to pieces by the light. Not only that, but under the starlight, the 7 stars of the Big Dipper slowly rose. Each star looked like the Fengwu. Each of the 7 stars was several times more majestic and crazier than the Wen Chu star, especially the power of the stars and the moon, which rushed toward the dragon throne in the north. Ao Hong couldn't compare to Ao Xuetong at all. Whether it was his draconic aura, imperial power, or the dragon throne, they all decayed under the power of the 7 stars of heaven and earth. Even the throne and the dragon crown on Ao Hong's forehead cracked and almost split in half. The people of the Dragon Palace of the Four Seas were scared out of their wits. Ao Chu didn't even have the thought of using the dragon throne to attack Xiaohua. He screamed, and his voice echoed in the entire space. You're actually a great saint of the demon clan? How is this possible? Ao Go shouted as he dodged the attacks of the Celestials. When did a great saint appear in the 1,000 demons sacred realm? How come we didn't know? At this time, the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas felt like they had smashed their own feet with a rock. Although the Four Seas Grand Formation wasn't good, it was still able to trap Xiaohua and the other 3. Even the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas were only at a slight disadvantage. But when they used the Four Seas Grand Formation that they had been planning for a long time, it couldn't even withstand a single blow. It wasn't that the Four Seas Grand Formation wasn't strong, but they really met a hard nail. They never thought that, not to mention the fact that the Celestials were of the Great Desolate Era, and weren't restricted by imperial power. The Wen Chu star was actually a genuine Wen Chu star. The Fengwu was also a genuine new great saint of the demon clan. Moreover, this great saint of the demon clan was a 7 stars great saint. With these 3 clones, there was no need for Xiaohua to transform into a sword. The Four Seas Grand Formation that used imperial power and draconic might as its foundation had already collapsed. Xiaohua laughed loudly. You are really shallow. Heaven, Earth, King, family and teacher. The so-called imperial power and the authority of the Dragon Clan are nothing but nothingness under the power of heaven and earth. Jie just behind Xiaohua's laughter. The Fengwu once again let out a phoenix cry that shook heaven and earth. The Fengwu's voice sounded in Ao Hong's ears. How can a dragon king without the fire dragon soul still be called a dragon king? You're not even as good as a little loach. Boom! The moment the Fengwu's voice fell, she opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of demonic chi that landed on the 7-star star pillar. The huge power of the stars and moon directly crashed into Ao Hong's dragon body. The brilliance of the dragon throne couldn't block the power of the stars and moon at all. Ao Hong's huge dragon body let out a cracking sound. The cracks were like dry earth, strangely appearing. Pieces of dragon scales fell from the surface of his body, and streams of dragon blood spurted out from the cracks like fountains. Ao Hong screamed. His dragon body rapidly shrank and fell from the dragon throne. Seeing Ao Hong fall from the dragon throne, Xiaohua coldly snorted. This was his plan. The strength of the Dragon Kings of the Four Seas was around the middle of the 9th grade of essence energy. They borrowed the power of the Four Seas Great Array. Xiaohua and his 3 clones might not be their match. If there was any chance in this great array, Ao Hong would be their biggest weakness. because Xiaohua was very clear in his heart that the West Sea Dragon Palace's nature was fire. Xiaohua had obtained the fire dragon soul in the West Sea Eye. If there were no surprises, it must be the West Sea Dragon Palaces. Now that the fire dragon soul was obtained by the little white dragon, Ao Hong definitely didn't have the fire dragon soul. Therefore, Ao Hong was the weakest of the dragon kings of the four seas. Therefore, Xiaohua ordered the strongest of the four, the Fengwu, to deal with Ao Hong. Who would have thought that the dragon kings of the four seas would actually use the power of imperial power? In this way, the Fengwu with the Big Dipper star mark was the natural nemesis of the dragon kings of the four seas. And it was really easy for him to deal with the weakest Ao Hong. The western side of the four seas great array was lost, and a flaw immediately appeared in the entire four seas great array. There was no need for Xiaohua to give any more instructions. The Fengwu spread his wings again, and a huge Big Dipper starlight pillar immediately fell around the dragon throne, separating the western side from the four seas great array. Haha, many thanks, fellow Taoist. Xiaohua understood. He released his mind, and was about to put the dragon throne into his space. However, when the dragon throne fell into his mind, the dragon throne was actually as heavy as 10,000 caddies. Xiaohua's mind was unable to move it at all. Damn it, Xiaohua immediately understood, and cursed in his heart. He was not a dragon. Although there was some dragon chi in his body, if he wanted to control this dragon throne that was said to represent the will of the dragon race, it was impossible. Roar Ao Qian was shocked and hurriedly urged the dragon throne, wanting to take back the dragon king of the West Sea's dragon throne. But how could the Fengwu let him succeed? The power of the stars and moon surged, blocking the dragon throne. The dragon king of the West Sea fell from the dragon throne, and a flaw appeared in the four seas great array. And when the Fengwu separated the dragon throne from the four seas great array, the entire four seas great array was broken, and it no longer had the ability to stop Xiaohua. Swoosh like a heavy rain, endless blue water fell from the sky, and the space of the four seas great array collapsed. Boom, Wenchu smiled. The Wenchu star turned into a book and fell into his body. The sword light around Xiaohua's body disappeared, revealing a Taoist cultivator who had a card up his sleeve. As for the Fengwu, his wings protected the dragon throne, and the Big Dipper star mark was also hidden on his back. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.